Hey guys, welcome to part 10 of What If Naruto Was Adopted by Hyuga Clan. If you enjoy the video then like, share and subscribe and also comment your thoughts as it inspires me to make more such videos, and remember to check out my playlist section for other interesting stories. So let's get started. Chapter 53. Sound Against Leaf. Sasuke Retrieval Arc. Sound Against Leaf. Dodging attack after attack, Hitaki Kakashi wondered how he had made such a foolish mistake. The gray-haired Jonin was not accustomed to these things anymore. Walking into an ambush without noticing even a single thing, this had not happened to him in years. He found himself cut off from his genin as the three demon-like assailants slowly drove him further into the woods. Kakashi could not see Shino anymore, but he hoped the Aburame could manage. Last he saw was that Shino faced a girl with dark pink, almost red, hair. He had faith that Shino could at least hold off a single one of these enemies, but, with Sakura incapacitated, Kakashi knew that the youngster would be getting in trouble soon. Shino had an odd sense of loyalty and friendship. He never spoke much, but whenever there were issues, he seemed to silently steer things in such a way that people could find a solution. If someone threatened Sakura's life, the silent boy would undoubtedly use all his might to protect her, even if. Another massive fist came down. Kakashi grimaced, although none could see this, as most of it was hidden underneath his mask. The big red-skinned boy, or was it a grown man? Kakashi could not tell, had completely specialized himself in raw power. And while Kakashi was no slouch, he quickly realized that attempting to block these attacks was not advisable. It would take an Akamichi or a taijutsu specialist like guy to fight this guy on equal footing in terms of raw physical power, he realized. Good thing that he is far too slow to be a real danger. No, the other two are more troublesome. It's as if they want me to hit them. Strange. The two smaller ones were practically identical. Both had a single pointy horn, although one had the horn on the left of his forehead, and the other on the right. They were fast. Not fast enough to truly trouble a Jonin of Kakashi's level of skill, but still they were rather annoying. Their confident grins were what troubled Kakashi most, though, and the three had flawless teamwork. If I can separate them, I could easily ensnare them with my Sharingan and take them out. But for some reason, I think it is best not to touch the smaller ones. They deliberately leave openings for me to exploit. It doesn't make any sense. Kakashi analyzed his situation. The big one should be taken down first. I easily countered his Doden Jutsu earlier, but his massive hits are annoying. With him out of the way, these two should be easily dealt with. Throwing a barrage of kunai, Kakashi suddenly stopped dodging and started his counterattack. Uken, being the slightly faster of the two, dodged the kunai, yet was forced back. Saken, on the other hand, got a large gash on his shoulder. Cursing, the two brothers noticed how Kakashi now launched a barrage of fireballs at Jirobo. Fuck. The giant cried out in pain. Before Kakashi could smile, though, his chakra was suddenly disrupted. Losing his momentum, his attack lost some of its power. And with Jirobo already being rather durable, the attack had far less effect than Kakashi had hoped. But why did he? Genjutsu. Hidden in the forestry, Hyuga prepared a second melody. She was astounded that the Jonin was so hard to catch. Even Kazu would have been caught by that one. Hell, her previous melody should have been enough to ensnare just about anyone, and firmly at that, but Kakashi had barely been phased. Just how much experience does this guy have? Hyuga was not hidden as well as she had hoped. With his Sharingan, Kakashi spotted where the attack came from and moved to take this nuisance out. At that moment, Kakashi made a crucial mistake. Uken, having dodged the kunai earlier, now slashed out at the Jonin's back. Kakashi's sharp ears gave him the opportunity to block the attack, but that did not matter to Uken. Bullseye. Saken cheered. Even Hyuga sighed in relief, being startled when the Jonin had rushed towards her. Not even a Jonin should be able to deal with his freakish merging jutsu thingy. That fucktard's Kekkei Genkai may be the ugliest thing I've ever seen, but even Kimimaro had to admit that it was a useful skill. Kakashi could see the foreign chakra invade the hand that he had just used to block Uken's attack. In a split-second decision, Kakashi took a gamble. Hopefully this guy isn't the Raiden type. Because, without hand seals, this won't do too much damage. It's going to hurt though. Chidori. The confident smiles of Sakin and Tayuya vanished the moment the lightning current flew through Kakashi's arm. Uken's screams were loud but short, and before he could completely escape it was already too late. Paralyzed, he fell down from Kakashi's arm, and the Jonin showed no mercy. The Chidori now enveloping his hand now flew through Uken's chest, leaving a burnt-out gap where once his heart had been. Eyes wide, and injury forgotten, Sakin rushed forward. Howling his fallen brother's name, the boy went berserk. Screaming, fuming, he blindly rushed into combat without even stopping to think for a second. The distraction for the Jonin, however, was the cue for Tayuya to start her next move. She began playing the notes for her strongest genjutsu, the Mugen Onsa Phantom Sound Chains. Struggling to keep Sakin at bay, while simultaneously fending off Tayuya's attempts to trap him in her genjutsu, Kakashi noticed too late that the shadow around him was quickly expanding. From above, an enormous hand crashed into him and broke his resistance. Tayuya continued playing her song. They had him. Kitamura already took that the Uchiha faggot away, so our mission is a complete success. Whoop-dee-fucking-do, Tayuya could not even smile, despite the fact that the three of them had just taken down one of the most infamous Jonin of Konoha. Then again, she never was happy. She just hated everything. We should get the fuck out of here, she urged. The fat ass is hurt from that Kaden jutsu, and you need to calm down. Sakin was still seething. We have him now, we should. Our mission was to take the faggot, nothing more. Killing Kakashi would be something that would piss off that one-eyed fucktard. He clearly stated that Konoha could not afford to lose this guy and Orochimaru-sama still needs that geriatric coward. We've got orders, so shut the fuck up and get going. He killed Uken. Uken was killed by his own stupidity. Move, now. What do you mean that you couldn't get into that hospital wing? Kiba exclaimed. Our friend is there. It was several hours after Team 7 was ambushed. Teams 8 and 10 had met up, confused as to why they were suddenly recalled and then ordered to stay put, while their sensei had to report with the Godime Hokage. Well, confused, until Shikamaru overheard his father and Inoichi discussing what could have put Hitaki Kakashi into the hospital. From the looks of it, the Aburame clan was in uproar as well. Something bad happened, and considering how none of the Aburame clan came to the hospital. Like I told you, Tsunade-sama's right hand, Kato Shizune, said I couldn't come in. Ino snapped at the Inuzuka. She was angry, frustrated that she couldn't visit her friend, couldn't even find out if Sakura was even alive. That means she's either in a critical condition, or something else happened. Shikamaru frowned. No one heard about Sasuke yet. And what about Shino? Hinata had a sad expression. She had been silent ever since they had met up again. Shikamaru had spread the six of them over the village, in order to gather information. Hinata had been the one to watch the morgue. I saw a Aburame shibi going into the Hinata forced the words out of her throat, tears running over her cheeks. Shino-kun must be. Karen pulled her teammate into an embrace, awkwardly trying to comfort the distraught girl. Kiba slumped down, sitting down on the ground, while Akamaru whined and put his head on Kiba's lap. Shino had been their former teammate. The three of them had been the original Team 8. This can't be real, can it? Shikamaru. Choji was equally startled. For the first time, Shikamaru began to wonder if his soft-hearted friend was perhaps not cut out for this job. For Shinobi, death was in the job description, but the Akamichi just seemed too gentle to deal with it. Shikamaru didn't really like to acknowledge the fact that they could all die, but he knew that it was the inevitability of their world. But Shikamaru admitted that if he was honest with himself, he didn't want Choji to harden to an extent that he could deal with such things. Hell, he even doubted that he himself was ready for these kinds of things. Even if he logically knew the possibility, his heart said something completely different. I shouldn't be foolish enough to think that I can protect Choji or anyone else from such things, Shikamaru grimaced. He had to shift his mind onto something else away from these emotions, and towards the analytical part of his brain. Sasuke. Choji shook his head, and Karen also shrugged. None of them had seen him. I felt nothing. I think I felt Haruno-san for a second, but it was too faint to be certain. I do know that their sensei, Kakashi, is in the hospital. Tsunade-sama is with him, Karen clarified. Her sensory abilities were a gift from the heavens, in Shikamaru's opinion. And Shino. He acts against his better judgment. I only met him twice, Karen hesitated. And I can't say that I can recall his chakra pattern. But you won't sense Aburame-san, Neji spoke up. He, Rock Lee, and Tenten approached the six. She had guided them here, to the back alley at the center of the village where the two teams had met up. We are the ones who, we found Team 7. Lee nodded, but his sad and silent demeanor already revealed that what they found was bad news, very bad news. Shino, there was an arrow right through his, so much blood, Tenten grimaced. While Neji had first spotted the team with his Byakugan, Tenten had been first to see the fallen Aburame up close. She still felt as sick as the moment she had seen his lifeless body for the first time. Shino is dead. And Kakashi. Sasuke-kun. Sakura. Ino pleaded. We brought them to the hospital, as fast as we could. But we found no sign of the Uchiha, Neji said bluntly. Sasuke was either kidnapped, or he fled. But considering the condition Kakashi was in, it was an ambush, that much is clear, Tenten agreed solemnly. All the signs of the battlefield pointed at that. That means someone was after Sasuke, Shikamaru sighed. He had been afraid of this. Dojutsu like the Sharingan were a highly valued commodity on the black markets. And with the Uchiha clan practically on the brink of extinction, that price had only grown to higher, absurdly higher, levels. Someone wants his Sharingan. Kiba's head jerked up. Orochimaru, he growled. Oh Orochimaru. Ino gasped. He gave Sasuke-san some kind of seal. Hinata began to explain the event that happened in the Forest for Death, during the second part of the Chunin exams, up to the point when Naruto had sealed the thing off. So Orochimaru put some kind of freakish seal on the Uchiha, and now has kidnapped him. Neji frowned. But someone like Orochimaru wouldn't have made such a mess out of fighting a Jonin like Kakashi. As strong as our sensei are, people like Orochimaru, Tsunade-sama, and Godime-sama are leagues above them. Besides, that would explain that charred corpse as well. It must have been someone of the group who attacked Team 7. He sent out some of his henchmen to do the dirty job, Shikamaru analyzed the situation. And if he is after the Sharingan, they will get him to a medical facility as soon as they can in order to extract Sasuke's eyes. Ino paled, and Hinata and Neji looked equally horrified. The latter two had been raised with threat of being targeted for their eyes. Hinata herself had almost been snatched away once. It was a day she would never forget, especially because it had been the first time she had really met Naruto. And when they have his eyes, they will probably get rid of him, Kiba added grimly. Like hell we would let that happen. We can't do a thing, Shikamaru reminded the angered Inuzuka. Hokage-sama must have realized the same thing. It would make sense for him to gather as many Jonin as he can if Orochimaru is involved in this mess. He ordered us to stand down until further orders, Neji nodded. Screw those orders, Kiba snarled. Those bastards killed Shino. What do you think we can do? Shikamaru sighed. This is something involving a shinobi who is far better than the 9 of us combined. We wouldn't even stand a ghost of a chance. It was not Orochimaru himself who attacked Team 7, right? Kiba countered. True, Neji agreed. And at least 2 of the attackers seemed injured, judging by the tracks we found. There were at least 2 who lost blood, aside from the one who was electrocuted. Then we can take them down, avenge Shino, and get that prick of an Uchiha back. Kiba jumped to his feet. Yes, Ino, you can glare all you want, but Sasuke has always been an arrogant jerk. But he is still our arrogant jerk. We can't let someone kill him for his freaking eyeballs. None of our sensei would agree with this. Karen hesitated, with us going out of the village while we were ordered to stay put. We can't wait around and do nothing. Ino decided. We'll get him out of there. I can't do a thing for Sakura as I'm no medic, but I can do something for Sasuke-kun. Ino, you make it sound logical, but this is your heart speaking, not your mind, Shikamaru sighed. It is not that easy. The Nara looked up at Neji, and then turned to Hinata and Karen. Kiba's opinion seems clear enough, but what about you 3? We will need your Byakugan and your sensory abilities if we want to hunt them down. Neji activated his Byakugan for a moment, analyzing the Nara's expression. He is completely serious. Surprising. I thought he was completely lazy, but his anger runs a lot deeper than his appearance would make you think. Tenten grabbed Neji by his arm, and gave him a fierce look. We can't let them take our friends. It would be most unyouthful, Lee agreed. Even if Gai-sensei would not approve, Gai-sensei also told us that we should not always blindly follow orders, but do what our heart tells us is right. Where is Naruto? Neji surprised everyone by turning towards Chi. We asked you to take us to him, but you brought us to them, he gestured at the two other teams. Naruto-sama is training. Together with Dusty Two-Leg and the others, Chi, for once, used a reverent way to address Naruto. She rarely did so. It was only during those rare occasions when she was actually serious that she showed how much she actually respected him. She had respect, because she could sense his struggle better than most, being different from all those around, and because he saved her from the empty void that once was her life. I cannot take you Two Legs up there. Not when Scarface Two-Leg and Crazy Snake's Two-Leg are with him. So I took you to them. She nodded at teams 8 and 10. They deserved to know about their fallen comrade. You knew. Tenten gasped. But how? We didn't tell you. You were talking to each other, and I had been following you ever since you were walking through the woods before you entered the Uzumaki compound, she clarified. Having Naruto at our side would be a great help, Neji sighed. That is why I came here. Scar had Two-Leg. She was a bit annoyed that everyone was so slow. She thought that it was all perfectly clear already, but of course she needed to explain things even further. Slow Two Legs. If White-Eyed Princess Two-Leg goes, Whisker Two-Leg will surely follow. Hinata looked at the cat, wondering if she was actually serious. Was Chi really using her as a pawn to move Naruto? It's your choice, White-Eyed Princess Two-Leg. She remained dead serious. No one can force you to go, yet if you go, you deserve to be aware of the consequences if you choose to go. Shino-kun was killed, Hinata mumbled, not comfortable now that everyone was looking at her. But I don't want revenge. Sasuke-san needs our help. If the Jonin don't take action, we will have to. The least we can do is track them down to where they hold Sasuke-san, and await reinforcements. Perhaps Naruto's words about Hinata-sama aren't as crazy as they once sounded. Neji smiled faintly, seeing the determination peeking out underneath her shyness. I swore to guard you, Hinata-sama, so if you go, I shall follow, he bowed slightly. Tenten frowned. It would still take some time to adjust to seeing her usually stoic teammate changing so much. But at least he wasn't a total asshole anymore, as Naruto could describe him so eloquently. Shikamaru looked at Choji and Ino, who both nodded. Everybody in. Yeah. But before they left, Neji bowed to Chi, and whispered to the feline. Hurry up and bring Naruto out. Even when wounded, they were people capable of taking down a Jonin. Ambush or not, this means that they are at the very least as strong as a Chunin. We will need Naruto at our side and if possible, Gaara and the others as well. I will hurry. But you should make sure the other Two Legs aren't going to do something stupid. Anger leads to many mistakes. Neji nodded. Ironically, he knew better than most how much wrong blind hatred could do. His own mistakes had proven a hard lesson. While his father's death would have most likely reinforced his hatred towards the main house prior to his battle against Naruto, Neji now knew that it was not the entire main house that was guilty. Only a select few were guilty. And together, they would find those who were guilty. Neji wondered why his father had been so terribly misguided, and in hindsight many of his actions had made little sense as they would harm the branch as much as the main house. Neji could remember times when his father had talked differently, but regardless of his mistakes, Hisashi had been his father. He was not the warmest and most caring father perhaps, but those things were not too common within their clan anyway. He was Neji's father. And as such, Neji wanted to make those responsible for Hisashi's death pay. But for now, his sense of loyalty was stronger than his hatred. Making an individual pay for a single action would not change the clan. Aiding Hinata to grasp control of the clan, however, would be a path that could lead to freedom. With Naruto backing her, abolishing the caged bird seal would not be impossible either. No, she was the only path that gave a chance of freedom, and he would do anything in his power to protect that chance. His father's older lessons had rooted firmly within Neji, for the sake of the clan. He took one last look at the black and white cat and saw her vanish around the corner. Yes, she would call in reinforcements. Even when disobeying orders, Neji knew that the risk was not as grave as he initially feared. Orochimaru was not there, and Neji doubted that any of the man's servants would be capable of beating the three teams, especially when backed by one or two Jinchuriki. Pride was still Neji's weakness, though. Sasuke frowned when his 4 guards stopped in the clearing. They only had moved for an hour or two, so they still had enough ground to cover. Why are we stopping? We need to hurry. Konoha will send out squads to retrieve me, so if we stay too long on one. Shut your fucking mouth, Saken snapped. Or I will rip your tongue out. Saken. Kidomaru stepped forward, positioning himself between the now deranged-looking Saken and their mission. Orochimaru-sama wants him unharmed. We all know why. Saken spat on the ground, but remained silent otherwise. What do you mean? Sasuke wondered. You know what he wants with me. He wants your body, you dipshit. The red-haired girl growled. She laughed when she saw him shudder in disgust. No, not in that way. He's a freaking snake, he has no interest in things like raping your skinny ass. No, he literally wants your body. He'll explain it soon enough. But it is the price you have to pay for using his gift. Do I have to pay it? It looks like you have no control over the curse seal yet. Bit by bit, the curse seal will consume your body. If you don't pay the price, you'll die, Hyuga smirked. I die. Sasuke was actually taken aback. The seal had provided him with so much power, but now it was lethal. If you can't control it, yes, Kidomaru agreed. But Orochimaru-sama seems to believe you can endure it. If not, he would not have given you that seal. Reaching up, Sasuke touched his own seal. What's so special about it? You guys have the same thing, right? Not really. There are differences, Kidomaru shrugged. But we know what it means. That is why we kept waiting for you, Sasuke-sama. Sasuke wondered. What's the meaning of this? His giving you that specific mark means that you will lead us. So I hope you forgive our earlier actions. Kidomaru inclined his head slightly, and it would have been respectful too if not for the mocking tone at which he spoke. I don't care. Let's go. We can't, the largest of the 4 huffed. We need some time to recover. Pathetic fat ass, Hyuga scoffed. Jirobo shook his head, annoyed by the foul language. You need rest too, Hyuga. You did not go to the 2nd level for as long as Saken and I did, but you are tired as well. Konoha will track us down soon, Sasuke warned. Hyuga laughed. You really think we came unprepared? No, those morons will have to sift through a mountain of fake information first, before they can make their decisions. They'll think Orochimaru-sama himself is with us, for example. And even if they sent people out, it would be in the wrong directions. No, that limp old bastard will derail Konoha's force long enough for us to get away. You can bet your pretty eyeballs on that. And yet that filthy old goat forbade us to permanently harm that Jonin, Saken growled. We should have killed that piece of trash. Shut the fuck up about that, Saken, Hyuga snapped. You know about his deal with Orochimaru-sama as well as I do. He didn't mind it if some weak piece of trash died, but he needed his top Jonin alive. He didn't become Hokage. His plans seem to have backfired on him, but we still have that agreement. So unless you want to piss off the snake himself, Hyuga shrugged. Then why did you kill Shino? Sasuke mumbled. Gay, you got pissed off because we killed your boyfriend. Sasuke glared at the girl. It was my burden, not theirs. I told ya. It was your choice that led to his death, Kidomaru frowned. Your actions have consequences. And those consequences are as much for others as they are for you. This is not some kind of fairy tale where everyone lives happily ever after. From the moment we crawl into this fucked up world, we suffer. Yeah, if someone is to be blamed, it is the one who threw us into this shit, Hyuga scowled. But what do you know? You lived your life in the safety of the fucked up village of tree huggers. What do you know about me? Sasuke snapped. What do you know about the pain You weren't sold off by your parents. Your family wasn't wiped out due to some retarded superstition, Hyuga growled, making Saken look away. You weren't enslaved by the very bandits who massacred your village, Kidomaru grimaced at hearing this. You weren't left for death, After your entire village was slaughtered, Jirobo sighed. Do you have the fucking audacity to talk about pain in comparison with us? Tisk. Whatever. Sasuke glared, but otherwise becoming silent. He knew they were right. If anyone was hurt due to his choices, it may be his fault, but the Sasuke who was part of Team 7, the Sasuke who went out on missions with the people who he eventually accepted as being close to him, closer than anyone had been since the extermination of his clan, was gone. That Sasuke had lost the struggle against the ever-present desire for vengeance. His heart ached, but it was nothing compared to the pain the memory of family left him. I will kill Itachi, even if it is the last thing I do, he repeated his mantra to himself. It was this mantra that had dragged him through those painful and lonely years following the Uchiha massacre. I am not like the rest of them. We have different paths that we must walk. I am an avenger. This is why I am alive. Not even Naruto can understand that pain. Silently, although the restless Saken kept staring at Sasuke, the 5 teenagers ate a quick meal. Under the cover of the trees that surrounded the clearing, Jirobo even took a short nap. Saken was too angry to even consider resting, even though Kitamaro had taken the duty of keeping watch. Meanwhile, Hyuga was playing her flute. Sasuke was actually surprised that the rude redhead was capable of creating such soothing music. It was so sad, and yet it held such calm, he soon drifted away. With Kiba and Akamaru quickly picking up the 5 different scents, the 9 rookies had quickly rushed through the forests surrounding Konoha. Still, it took them nearly 2 hours until Karen suddenly paused. I sense them, the Uzumaki hissed. Shikamaru looked at Neji and Hinata, but they shook their heads. They saw nothing. How far can you even? They're a few miles from here. Karen still had her eyes shut tightly, completely focusing on her inner eye, as Kurenai had nicknamed her sensory abilities. Aside from Sasuke, there are 4, one seems very strange. His chakra seems scrambled. What do you mean? Ino was confused as to why someone's chakra would be scrambled. 2 of them are injured, Kiba said. I smelled their blood. If someone is injured badly enough, their chakra is affected too. No, this is different, Karen hesitated. It's almost like this person lost part of himself or something. Remember how Naruto Nissen was after Right Sandaime Sama strengthened his seal? His chakra needed some time to settle down, Hinata nodded. I wonder what could have happened to that guy to get his chakra altered in such a fundamental way, Shikamaru wondered. But it means that at least one of them is weakened. And the others? How strong are they, Karen-san? They all seem about as strong as a Chunin, though the big one and scrambled one are rather weakened for some reason. But we can beat them. Karen shrugged, still not opening her eyes, but not sure how to answer. I cannot say how skilled they are. I only sense the strength of their chakras. And I must say that they are foul, all 5 of them. Hey, why is Sasuke-kun? Ino began to protest, but Shikamaru cut her off. What is wrong with Sasuke's chakra pattern? It's dark, darker than ever before. It almost feels a bit like Ni-san, when the Kyuubi influenced him. What did they do to Sasuke-kun? Ino, don't let your emotions get in the way of our mission, Shikamaru cut her off once more. The blonde glared, but for once the Nara did not back off. Troublesome as she may be, this was no situation where he would just leave things be. This was a matter of life and death, not some kind of stupid training. In addition, considering how he had been promoted, the others had appointed him as their makeshift captain. Karen, is he bound or otherwise restrained? I can't sense anything holding him down. No drugs, genjutsu, or other reasons why he wouldn't be able to escape, Karen shook her head. But I'm not sure. We should get closer so that Hinata-san or Neji-san could see. Let's move, Kiba growled, getting an agreeing bark from Akamaru. Nodding, even Sasuke lingered near the borders of waking and sleeping. This had been an exhausting day, both physical and mentally, and with Hyuga's music in the background, his thoughts had soon drifted away. At least, he did so until Saken unsealed some kind of weird bathtub, which he threw on the ground with enough of a racket to wake even the noisily snoring Jirobo. What is that? Sasuke looked at the wooden construct with more than a little distrust. This will be a good place, Sasuke-sama, Saken mocked the Uchiha. We've gone far enough from that piece of trash village. I'm asking you. What the hell is that? We've got important orders from Orochimaru-sama. Saken's insane grin never left his face. I particularly like the last one. You must die once. Immediately on guard, Sasuke glared at the least sane of his four guards. You're telling me to die once. Ruffling through his pockets, Saken presented a small bottle with pills to him. This is Sishingen. I'll have you take one of these. Yuya sighed as she saw the look on Sasuke's face, not that she really blamed him. By the looks of it, Saken really wished the Uchiha to die from it. Uken was always the crazy one, but his death seems to have caused some severe mental damage to Saken. Well, he was always an idiot, but this level of retardation is way beyond what we're used to from him. Sishingen will forcefully release the cursed seal to its second level, she explained. But that will also dramatically increase the contamination speed of the seal. If we do nothing, you will die. In order to control the second level, your body needs some time to get adjusted, Kidomaru continued. With the second level, you will probably possess the same level of strength as us, but if you are in that state, you probably only have a few minutes before you die. Sasuke gulped. How do I adjust? Don't worry, Saken, the guy who actually worried Sasuke the most, chuckled. That's what we're here for. We'll put you in a temporary coma by creating a barrier. We put that thing around you, and it will reduce the side effects of the curse. Barrier skills, Sasuke grimaced. He had grown to despise that branch of ninjutsu, especially because Naruto made use of it. How reliable are they? Hey, we four are usually the elite guards of Orochimaru-sama himself. Creating seals and barriers are our strongest skills. Kidomaru boasted. Well, boasting was not really the right word. Kenta, Kazu, and Kabuto were far stronger than they were, but unlike the Sound Four, this trio was always sent out on missions of their own. I cannot die yet, I must kill Itachi first. I'll do everything for the sake of avenging our parents, Itachi. Even if I have to sell my soul to the devil, my face will be the last thing you'll ever see. Sasuke opened the bottle, took one of the pills, and swallowed it. All members of the four looked at him. Each of them had gone through the very same process, and knew very well how much Sasuke would have to suffer. Actually, knowing what was to come was a source of amusement to both Kidomaru and Saken. When Sasuke doubled over, it was as if he was hit by a pain more severe than anything he'd ever felt before, including being poisoned by the Kyuubi's chakra. Jirobo looked at his teammates. We should hurry, or Sasuke-sama is going to kick the bucket. Let him, Saken smirked. Perhaps that would be the most merciful way, but we can't let that happen, Yuya sighed. Let's seal the princess. Jirobo grabbed the withering Uchiha, and deposited him in the wooden container. All four stood at a side of the container, focusing their chakra and synchronously executing the exact same hand seals. A large black cloud enveloped the container, and when the members of the Sound Four put their hands down, the cloud descended upon the crate. All the darkness was sucked into the object, only leaving a solid black mass behind. The sealing tag stabilized the dark seal, the Huan Fukoku, which the four had used. Now Sasuke was trapped in the darkness. And they knew he would have to survive on his own now. The strength of his volition would determine if he would fail or not. Not even Orochimaru himself could change that part of the process, and they had all seen enough people fail during this process. It was definitely not the best way to die. One has some burns on his chest, the big one, Hinata reported. The wounds seem to limit his movements. Not by much though, but it would seem that none of the four know any medical ninjutsu, if they left that untreated, Neji added. They are weird though. The girl and the six-armed boy seem to be the most difficult opponents. They possess the most chakra at least. 6 arms. Choji exclaimed, quickly hushed by Ino. They're the henchmen of that Orochimaru, remember? Hiba mumbled. No surprise that he collected a group around him who are as freakish as he is. Still, 6 arms. It makes me wonder what kind of modifications the other 3 have, Neji mused. There is no way that those 3 are normal. So, should we attack, or send someone back for reinforcements and keep tracking them? Shikamaru remained focused, not wanting to distract himself too much by thinking how freaking tough this group would be. There are 9 of us, against 4 of them. 2 of them are injured. Can we take them down by ourselves? Quote, comma, quote. Hey, are you? Neji cut him off by raising his hand. What is going on? Sasuke-san just swallowed some kind of pill. It is affecting him badly, Hinata clarified. Is her eyesight better than mine? Neji frowned. He had not seen that detail. Not from this distance, at least. They seemed to be sealing him into something now. His chakra, it was changing. It grew darker and colder, Karen shuddered. And more powerful. But it seemed very unstable. Shikamaru-san, I don't think they are merely after his Sharingan. It seems like they gave him something which affected his cursed seal. It was just like when he went crazy in the forest of death. Is that thing truly that evil? Tenten wondered. How bad can it be? It spreads a secondary chakra through his body, Neji clarified. And based on what Hinata-sama, Kiba, and Karen-san just told us, it also affects his emotions. But what just happened? Ino demanded. Sasuke-san has been sealed within something. It is like there is some kind of barrier surrounding him. I cannot see past it. Hinata looked at Neji, but he too could not see through it. I've got nothing either, Karen shrugged. But whatever they did, it was dangerous. But now it is like they created a void into which Sasuke disappeared. He sustained a lot of damage to his tenketsu before they sealed him, Neji agreed. Were they killing him? Ino-san, I do not think Sasuke-san was held against his will, Hinata hesitated. I feared as much, Shikamaru sighed. Yes, Ino, if you opened your eyes instead of following your heart, you would have seen that possibility too. Sasuke was way too obsessed with power. I suppose that whatever Orochimaru gave him, this is a way to master that power, am I right? It seems likely, but what are we supposed to do about this? Neji looked at Shikamaru. The longer we wait, the greater the grip of the seal on Sasuke will become. So we should act fast. 2 of them are injured, and we are 9. I know the basic level of skill of each of us, except for Karen. I must ask you, how strong are you? Karen hesitated. Seeing that she did, Kiba answered on her behalf. Kusa never trained her well. She is an excellent sensor, but she's not cut out for frontline combat. He looked at Karen, who seemed rather dejected. Don't blame yourself. I didn't mean to insult you, but I don't want you to put in harm's way either. You're an amazing sensor. I mean, you managed to track down the legendary Tsunade, when even Jiraiya-sama failed. Spend some time with Kurenai-sensei and you'll be kicking our asses as well. Karen smiled a little at that prediction, but still, I am sorry I am not more useful. Without you we would not have been able to evade those traps, right? Shikamaru remembered the girl of the craftily hidden traps that had surrounded the area. But all those traps shared one fatal flaw. They were based on chakra. So Karen had spotted all the traps, even when Neji and Hinata had missed several of them. But while we do not know how strong these guys are, nor do we know who has what kind of skill set. So, we could better split into well-balanced teams. All we know right now is that there is one capable of Doden jutsus, and one of them is an archer. Are you sure that it is wise to split up? Neji frowned. These guys took down Hitaki Kakashi. Even if they fought 3-on-1, it shows their teamwork is good. In contrast, we are composed of 3 teams, and aren't used to working together like this, so our teamwork is probably a lot worse. Our best odds are to split them up and take them down separately. I'd rather take that option than let them work together, cover for each other's weaknesses, and take us down one by one. Why not just snatch the coffin which holds Sasuke, and make run for it? And get the 4 of them after us. Are all 9 of us capable of outrunning them? No. Or should only one take Sasuke, while the other 8 stay and stall them? Again, the problem would be that they aren't split up. Besides, we have to fight them anyway, whether we do it with 8 or with 9. But I think the latter case gives us better odds, Shikamaru summarized. I think it is best to scatter them with our first attack, and split them up. But who has to fight who? Neji considered this for a moment, and then nodded. I think you are right. Besides, if we do not attack all of them, one could try to take Sasuke and run. Going in on offense might be best. As for your question, the big guy seems like a close combat type. In that case, Choji and Kiba should focus on him, Shikamaru suggested. As long as we do not know whether the big guy has some kind of ninjutsu or not, Lee should better focus on the one with the scrambled chakra. I doubt that guy could perform any jutsu in his state. I'll help Lee, Ino suggested. If he does not have proper control of his own chakra, my Shintention no Jutsu would be even more useful than normal. And Karen could help Choji, Akamaru, and me, Kiba added. Very well. Neji, can you and Tenten deal with that six-armed guy? Shikamaru asks. Neji and Tenten nodded. Good, then I will cooperate with Hinata. If I trap that girl, Hinata should be able to disable her with her Juken. On top of it, with Karen, Neji, and Hinata split, at least 3 groups have a good overview of the situation. Hey, my clan is known for its sensory abilities too. Ino protested. Not that anyone bothered to start an argument with her on this. It was neither the time nor the place for that. Shouldn't we wait on Naruto-kun? Hinata looked hesitantly at the others, who all seemed to prepare themselves for the oncoming battle. Sasuke-kun is hurt. He may die. We cannot wait, Ino snapped. She does have a point, Ino. Shikamaru hushed her, though not with too much enthusiasm. And there is little point in meaninglessly wasting your life in a failed attempt to save him. Ino bristled, but Shikamaru ignored her and looked at the 2 Hyuga and Karen. You 3 can judge our situation best. With the plan we have, can we take them down, or should we wait for Naruto and risk that the spot us while we wait until Chi brings reinforcements? We can do it, Neji was confident. We always have a 2-on-1 situation, and as soon as one of them falls, the odds only grow in our favor. They may have beaten Kakashi-sensei, but this time it is their time to be ambushed. Besides, if Chi manages to warn Naruto quickly, he should be here soon enough anyway. If we let them go away now, we might risk our opportunity. We now have the extra advantage of them not knowing we are here, but if we need to follow them. If they are good enough to take down Kakashi-sensei, they are good enough to notice us soon too, Shikamaru agreed. He was still confused how they had created those web-like threads around the clearing. If it had not been for Karen, they would have missed at least some of the lines. Luckily, the threads were created with chakra, so she could see them. If only barely. Okay, attack on my cue. And we don't want to be taken out with one jutsu, so spread out. Much will depend on how quickly the 2 injured guys are taken down. If that happens, we will definitely have the upper hand, Shikamaru grimaced. Don't worry, Shika, we can do it, Choji smiled at his friend. They killed Shino, hurt Kakashi-sensei, and we don't even know if Sakura is alive or not. We will repay the favor. Yosh. Lee's unusually silent demeanor vanished like snow before the sun. Even Tenten was taken aback a little when she saw the fire in his eyes. He must be angry that Sakura got hurt. Worse even, he doesn't know whether she is alive or not, she guessed. Well, it's the Lee equivalent of anger, at least, she mentally added, while she prepared her weapon scrolls. The 9 jumped down from the trees, into clearing, where 4 surprised shinobi awaited them. Bonus. The marked man won. Rado pulled the key out, and closed the door behind him. Ah, home at last, he mumbled. With Anko currently looking after the kids, he had some time to get home and he needed it. While he was happy to serve the son of the man he had once sworn loyalty to, some time off was definitely a luxury, especially due to Anko's alcohol-deprived antics. But most of all, Rado needed to check on his basement. Anko would probably murder me if she knew what I did in my spare time. A lot of people would probably freak out if they knew. That was exactly the reason why they kept it a secret. Rado had inherited it from his grandfather, and now he cooperated with his elder cousin. Through a secret tunnel, his cousin, who lived around the corner, could enter Rado's basement. Of course, that poor man had to keep this a secret as well, considering how his wife would react if she would find out. Similarly, someone with Rado's position could not be known for this either. Who knew how anyone would react when they figured out he and his cousin had secretly continued their grandfather's sake brewery? It was not just any label either. The Marked Man was one of Konoha's most exclusive brands of sake. Both Rado and his cousin were extremely methodical with their every move. It ensured that the brewing process was extremely precise, even though it was all traditionally made, rather than many of the other sake brands which were created through a partially automated production process. No, The marked man was a label which maintained extremely high standards. Considering how it was a two-man business, it was also a highly exclusive brand. It was one which many parties within Konoha desired to take under their control. Rado had seen the chaos that Anko and Tsunade had created only a few days before, over the destruction of one bottle of his sake. Yeah, she'd definitely try to murder me if she found out. Rado shuddered at the thought. Going down the stairs and entering the surprisingly large basement, Rado had put his wages to good use. Rado immediately saw that something was missing. The casks, made of the best wood available, were filled to the brim with the delicious strained, clear sake. However, the funnel used to pour the sake from the casks into the bottles was gone. It was gone, yet Rado knew that his cousin would never put it anywhere but the designated position. Where was it? Crazy snake's two-leg. What is it this time? Anko asked the cat wearily. I'm not in the mood for another prank. So unless you get me either dango or sake, I suggest you scram. I wanted to apologize for locking you in that room the other day, she continued, as if she was never interrupted. Anko shivered. Shizune and Akko had not been pleased when they found Anko and Tsunade locked in that room. That Gaki truly went overboard when it came to sealing that room. What the hell is wrong with that kid? There was no way out. Aside from tearing down the building, why would he go that far for some stupid threat against his ramen? If it had been dango or sake, I would have understood, but that shitty broth. Two other cats, one reddish and one brown with a white-tipped tail, entered the room while they carried a strange metal object in their mouths. The hell is this? Not sure, but it smelled like your flaming water, she spoke up. So we brought it here. Right, and what do I have to do with it? It is from the marked two-leg, or whatever it was that stood on the bottle, she tilted her head slightly. You seemed to like it last time. The marked two-leg. What are you talking about? Wait, are you talking about the marked man? She nodded. You found the brewery of the most elusive company in Konoha. Anko had eyes big as saucers at this point. Please tell me where. Taken aback by Anko's sudden change in demeanor, she wondered if it would be wise to tell. Anko just seemed to be a bit too fanatical. And as if on cue, the snake mistress conjured up a kunai. The two-leg would go nuts if I don't tell, ah well. I'm too young to die just yet, I'm sorry, Scarface two-leg. Rado had searched through his entire basement, visited his cousin's place, thanked Kami his wife had not been there, and was currently ransacking his own house. But so far, the funnel remained missing. He was so distracted by his quest, Rado even failed to notice the ominous sensation when someone knocked at his front door. Coming. It isn't in the hall either, where on earth did it go? Rado fumed while walking to the door. Hello, Rado-kun. Anko as of late had made a game of striking seductive poses with her already way too revealing usual clothing, but this pose really hit the top spot. Anko. Who else? Why, wait, what are you doing right here? Rado suddenly realized that she must have left the two Jinchuriki unguarded at the Uzumaki compound. I came to make an offer you can't resist. Anko leaned towards him. Unsure what he was supposed to be doing in this situation, Rado leaned back. She lost it. She has completely lost it. Rado blinked. His calm and collected attitude was completely shattered right now, embarrassed as he was that he could barely look away from the rather close view he now had of Anko's cleavage. Offer. He eventually repeated dumbly. Yes, why don't I give you this? Anko held up the funnel Rado was seeking. And in return for me keeping your hobby a secret, you provide me with sake, she smiled. However, that smile had nothing friendly at all in it, at least, not in Rado's eyes. He saw it as a threat. I'm not sure why you went to such lengths to keep this a secret, but I doubt you want it to get exposed, right? How? Hi, Scarface two-leg, she popped up from behind Anko. I love what you did to your basement. Looking from the mischievous black and white cat to his fellow Tokubetsu Jonin, Rado paled. Even the wheel-like scar on his face seemed to change color. Fuck. I didn't agree to that. Yet, Anko winked. Get me a few bottles of your sake. I'll give you a day, or else I'm going to pay Tsunade-sama a visit. I'm sure she would love to know about this too. Why you wouldn't? Hey, you're the mastermind behind Konoha's best sake, of course you would be a great catch. Anko smirked. Wah what? Rado started to blush. No. No, that's not what I meant. I meant about telling Tsunade-sama. If you're a good boy, I will be a good girl, Anko purred, before she walked away as seductively as she could. Rado swore that he had never seen such curves when a person wore a trench coat before. Remember, you have one day. Chapter 54. Origins in Flames. She tugged the yellow fabric with no small amount of pride. Pride, because Naruto had given her this short-sleeved, tan kimono-like blouse. She absolutely loved it, especially its dark, embroidered border. He had also given her a black obi that kept the blouse closed, as well as being able to hold some kunai and sealing scrolls. She had also found a not too expensive, dark skirt and stockings that went with it. Sure, it was not lavender, which was by far her favorite color, but this was something Uzumaki Kushina herself had worn, something that truly belonged to the Uzumaki clan. My clan, Karen kept telling herself, over and over again. She had a clan. She still could hardly fathom it. She really had family now. Her dream, for as long as she could remember, was having a family. Karen had always been alone. Memories of her childhood were mostly a blur, filled with nightmares of pain and loneliness. But even many of the other street rats had had some family. A little brother, a sister, an ill mother, a father lost to battle, or anyone. But Karen had not. Even when she was thrown into the orphanage, Karen had always felt alone. On the streets of the wretched city whose name she couldn't even remember anymore, she had lived alone, stealing, begging, getting food by whatever means possible. It wasn't like the orphanage provided any of it, and what they did provide was always taken away by the older and stronger kids. It was a desperate life, with a constant threat of pain or even death, but it was still better than what most older homeless girls eventually had to deal with. Children of the street were usually captured and sold. The orphanage was just another name for a warehouse, one where kids were nothing more than merchandise. Only once had Karen seen one of the older girls return to her neighborhood. That poor girl had barely been 15 when she was captured and sold. She had always refused to talk about what had happened to her, and only later Karen would realize why the girl's stomach had started to grow so much in the months after. Now, Karen could understand why the poor girl had cried so much, even after all the bruises and cuts had healed. Karen still felt sick whenever she thought about it. How close had Karen been to such a fate? She had been sold off to Kusugakure after a jonin of that village had noticed her sensory abilities, and would have inevitably ended up as a mother herself. Whether it was willing or not, she had been bought for her DNA, so reproduction was part of the job. Each hidden village had this iron law. The militaristic society always needed more soldiers. While boys with bloodlines were more wanted in the slavery business, as they could spread their genes faster than girls, who only gave birth once every 9 months, girls like Karen were always in demand on the black market. After all, blood was the most valuable commodity in their world, and a sensory ability like Karen's was deemed extremely useful. If she produced several male children with that same ability, a hidden village could spread that blood within several generations. No one cared if there were a few more crying girls with swollen bellies. But as dark and hopeless as her world had looked, by chance her team had been selected to join the Chunin exams in Konoha. Her teammates were considered to be among the strongest of their generation, at least in Kusugakure. Karen's sensory ability would complement them perfectly. But her teammates were not as strong as the village had thought, and they had died soon enough. Karen had barely even learned their names, before they lost their lives in that cruel forest. Kusa believed she had perished as well. And she would have, if Kiba had not saved her from that bear in the forest of death. By doing that, he had spared her far more pain and anguish than he would ever realize. Especially since that encounter led to her being accepted into Konohagakure. Thanks to Kiba, she had been freed. She became more than just a womb on legs. Thanks to him, she had been happy for the first time since she could remember, truly happy. That Naruto, the boy who initially terrified her with his ominous chakra, had the same Uzumaki blood as hers made her life even more perfect. She was no longer alone. Naruto was equally exhilarated at having someone who was truly related to him by blood, no matter how distant. He had even granted Karen her long-cherished wish. she now had someone to call a brother. She had someone who called her sister. Every time he called her Nichan, she smiled like crazy. To her, the tan kimono-like blouse she now wore was a physical manifestation of that new bond. That he would give her something that once belonged to his mother still humbled her. She knew how happy he had been when he found out about his mother, and for him to give her something that belonged to Kushina made her so happy. It was this happiness she now feared losing. All the things she gained, she would do everything in her power to protect, to keep them. However, Karen knew that her power was very limited. I am weak. My only talent is my sensory ability, but otherwise I am useless. I just hope I won't be a burden to Choji or Kiba-kun. Karen felt her confidence crumble. Their group had caught up with the quartet that had abducted Uchiha Sasuke. Or guided him out of town, Karen thought. Yes, that would be a better way to put it. Unlike what the blonde Yamanaka seemed to believe, the Uchiha boy did not seem to be restrained at all. In fact, Karen could not even find a hint that he had resisted his capture. As Shikamaru, the only Chunin and thus unofficial commander of the group, laid out the plans, Karen wondered if this whole clandestine mission could even be considered as a Sasuke retrieval mission. If he went with them willingly, he would be branded a traitor. Karen had seen in Kusa how traitors and runaways were treated. While Konoha seemed to keep its darker side better concealed than Kusa did, Karen had no illusions that her new village would be much kinder if it turned out Sasuke had indeed become a traitor. In fact, the stories Anko told about her job at the torture and interrogation division were enough to make most people lose their appetites. I hope for his sake my suspicions are wrong. I'm probably prejudiced anyway, considering how he attacked Nissan and all. Besides, I'm not half as good at tracking as Kiba or Hinata are. If they are good enough to take down Kakashi-sensei, they are good enough to notice us soon too, Shikamaru spoke up, snapping her out of her train of thought. Okay. Attack on my cue. And we don't want to be taken out with one jutsu, so spread out. Karen felt annoyed that she could not stop herself from trembling. She was afraid. She felt powerless, but at the same time she wished with all her heart that she had the ability to protect all the things, and all the people precious to her. For the first time, she had something to fight for. She would give it her all, for Kiba, for Naruto, for her new team, and for her friends. She took out the scroll with exploding tags. She, Hinata, and Tenten had practiced making these, and while Karen's tags were far less potent than Tenten's, she sure hoped that they would be useful in their fight against the biggest of the four kidnappers, although it was clearly apparent to her that he was not the strongest. Don't worry Shikamaru, we can do it, Choji smiled at his friend. Karen wondered how a boy like this had gone so far in the previous exams. He just seemed so innocent to her. Then again, most of their group seemed to be oblivious to how dark their world truly was. They killed Shino, hurt Kakashi-sensei, and we don't even know if Sakura is alive or not. We will repay the favor, the chubby boy spoke with more determination than Karen had expected. Perhaps this fight won't be as bad as I feared. She hoped. Yash. Lee's unusually silent demeanor vanished like snow before the sun. The nine jumped down from the trees into the clearing, where four surprised shinobi awaited them. Tired, she felt so horribly tired. The eerie, white surroundings of the hospital had confused her for a few moments, until she once again remembered what had happened. Sasuke-kun, how could you? Tears fell down, but Sakura felt too numb to move, to cry out, or to vent her frustration, anger, despair, and confusion. Those people belonged to Otogakure. They had been Orochimaru's henchmen. Why had Sasuke not resisted? He had just stood there, talking with that six-armed freak, and had not even lifted a hand when the latter had aimed his bow. Sasuke had done nothing to rescue Shino. Shino. Why, Sasuke? Why? I knew you were angry, I knew you were frustrated, but to do something like this, I thought you cared about us. How could you just allow them to kill Shino? Did he mean nothing to you? Did I mean nothing to you? You just stood there, and did nothing. Her heart felt as if it had shattered. She lost her mother during the invasion, and then her fool of a father had died in an accident, all because the man had been so drunk that he couldn't even walk down the stairs. At least, that was what she thought had happened. On top of that, now Sasuke had left her behind as well. I knew you were hurting, But, even if you lost so much, you still had us. You still had me. Did you not know I love you, Sasuke-kun? And now she was bound to this accursed hospital bed. She wished she could get out, to go after Sasuke, because without him, what did she even have in this village? There were some distant relatives, and there was her aunt from mother's side whom she hadn't seen in years due to the fight her aunt once had with Mebuki. No, the only person who was still important to her was Uchiha Sasuke, the boy who had broken her heart by betraying her, by betraying their team. As she sobbed, she even wished that she could have gone with him. If only she had not been hit by those poisons Senbon. The after effects of their poison still numbed her. In fact, according to Tsunade, whom Sakura had spoken with a bit earlier, those Senbon had actually done little damage. One had severed a tendon, and one had come close to an artery. But seeing how she had been struck by over a dozen needles, she could be considered lucky to get away with this little damage. Even the poison had contained no dangerous side effects, something Tsunade had remarked upon as very curious. Apparently, Orochimaru was not known for making poisons that would not kill someone. Had Sakura been clear of mind, she would have realized that those Senbon had been prepared for Sasuke. But none of those things crossed Sakura's mind. Her sensei had been gravely injured, her teammate had been killed, and the people who did it were apparently Sasuke's allies. Sakura had not known what to say to Tsunade, but realized that if she voiced her suspicions that Sasuke had gone with them willingly, he would be marked as a traitor. I can't tell any of the adults. Someone who doesn't know Sasuke-kun would declare him a missing nin, and Sasuke-kun would be hunted down and killed. I can't let that happen. I'm sure there must be another explanation as to why Sasuke did not resist being taken away. He must be threatened, or anything. He wouldn't. No, I love him, he won't do such things. Perhaps they threatened to kill me, and that was why he surrendered. You're being naive, her inner voice sighed. Sasuke went with them. He let that guy kill Shino. But Sasuke-kun would not. Che, you are blind. Shino trusted him to take that six-armed guy on, and look what it brought him. But assume you find anyone willing to take him back alive, who would be strong enough. You already know who you should ask, but what guarantee can he give you that he won't kill him with his own hands? Naruto and Sasuke-kun may have this rivalry thing, but Naruto would understand. No, he wouldn't have to know. If he wouldn't know any better than that those Oto nin abducted Sasuke-kun, he would go out and rescue him, right? Sakura felt her inner persona's disappointment. What? She snarled at herself. Lying to Naruto is dangerous. It will only make the situation worse. If he finds out that you would use him like this, he'd never. Who cares about that? The only thing that matters is that Sasuke-kun gets back to Konoha. I'm sure that if I talked to him, Sasuke-kun would. Idiot. You would talk to him and he would change. Even you should not believe that. What did you think Kakashi-sensei did? And Shino? Why did Shino even give us that cryptic warning before we went back to Konoha? He knew something was off about Sasuke. He knew something we didn't see. Sakura was about to argue against this, not believing that there was anything off about Sasuke at all, that he was as perfect as usual, but something distracted her. She opened her eyes, red from crying, and looked around. The door had not opened, nor had the window, but something. Good afternoon, Haruno-san, a seemingly frail old man spoke up. Sakura felt certain that his appearance was only hiding his abilities. There had been nearly no sound at all, and the only thing that Sakura had noticed was the slight breath of air that followed the person's movement. Shunshin no Jutsu. With this level of stealth, he would be at least as skilled as a Jonin. Sakura grew suspicious. Who are you? Why are you here? It was clear that the old man, despite the fact that his face was mostly covered in bandages, seemed mildly amused at her suspicion. I am Shimura Danzo, elder of the Konoha Council, he rasped. I am here for you, Haruno Sakura. Tell me, what do you feel, knowing that the Uchiha child has betrayed you and your team? How? Sasuke-kun did not. Do not try to lie to me. I know about his foolish desire to avenge and redeem his clan. His calm and nearly emotionless voice terrified Sakura. I know why he left and I know who led him away. Now that we have skipped the part where you try to defend your teammate, answer my question. How I feel. I feel lost. Sad. And angry. Danzo's disapproval was only visible by how the corner of his mouth turned a few millimeters down. Emotions are something that weakens a shinobi. Your distractions only cause you to do nothing. But if you are truly angry at the Uchiha, what are you going to do? You need strength if you want to confront the boy. Strength. Sakura blinked. That is what I offer. Had you been faster, you would have been able to dodge those Senbon. Had you been stronger, you would have been able to fight alongside your teammates. But that is not going to change anything, Danzo continued. The way you think is your weakness. You let your emotions run rampant. But my training could help you in that. It could make you powerful. But I don't know if. I read the reports. You lost your mother during the invasion, and your father soon after. And now your team fell apart. Do you wish to continue feeling like you are right now? Sakura opened her mouth, but forgot what she wanted to say before she even said it. She felt dumb, and closed her mouth. After moments of silence in which Danzo's visible eye kept studying her expressions, Sakura finally made her decision. No, she whispered. Would you accept my training regime? Would you do whatever it takes to protect the roots that uphold the tree that is Konohagakure no Sato? Meanwhile, the inner Sakura was starting to panic. She felt a foreign chakra seeping in her, influencing her dominant counterpart. Something was wrong. Something was terribly wrong. But no matter how hard she screamed, Sakura seemed to be oblivious to the threat. Danzo's eyebrow cocked up a little. Well, no, I do not wish to remain like this, Danzo-sama, Sakura spoke clearly now. Her inner voice shivered at the bland and emotionless tone, and especially noted the sama, which suddenly popped up. Don't listen to him. Don't trust him. Damn it, listen to me, you baka. Good. My men will pick you up once you are fit to return home. In the meanwhile, your initial mission will be to earn the trust of Senju Tsunade. She is currently performing surgery on Hitaki Kakashi, but she will soon inspect you again. You are exactly the type of kunoichi she would like to have as an apprentice. Moreover, with the situation you are currently in, you should be able to gain her sympathy with ease. Yes, Danzo-sama. After you commence and carry on your training with Root, for at least a month, you will also repair your bond with Uzumaki Naruto in your spare time. I need an agent close to him. I need to know how he acts, how he will respond to the plans I wish to set in motion. I need to be able to predict his every movement. I need to understand that thing. You, Haruno Sakura, are a useful piece in this game, but Uzumaki Naruto is the asset every power in Konoha covets. If he continues to grow like this, he will be someone who will shape the future of this village. And the one who controls him, will control that future. I need that volatile, yet extraordinary powerful Jinchuriki under my command soon, so you will have to do your work well. Yes, Danzo-sama, Sakura stared blankly at her new master. She was receptive to his every order, as the Genjutsu had now fully taken its effect. And with the Jinchuriki in my grasp, we should be able to retrieve the Uchiha quickly, Danzo smirked at the ease of this process. Of course, he would not tell her that he had a hand in the Uchiha's betrayal by helping Orochimaru to retrieve the boy and distracting the entire village by creating false leads. No, she would be easier to control if her heart agreed with his goals. Shisui's eye is truly one of the most valuable items in our world. It is a shame I never got my hands on his other eye. But with the Senju DNA, the Koto Amatsukami recharged quick enough from when I used it on Hizashi. However, had I not prepared her like this, convincing her would have been more difficult. Yes, the harder it was to convince the target, the more chakra the Genjutsu would consume. Powerful and subtle as the Koto Amatsukami may be, if Sakura had not already been willing to agree with Danzo's proposition, it would have taken a lot longer to recharge the stolen eye. A month. Perhaps a bit longer. Ordering Fu to kill the girl's father was the right call. It broke her. It removed the things that gave her hope, allowing me to use the one thing she still desired as bait. Young girls are far too easy to manipulate. But because of it, my plans can be set in motion much sooner than originally intended. Orochimaru unknowingly acted as my pawn, playing along with my plan. I suppose I should pay Hyuga Hideo a visit, so that this part of the plan is set in motion as well. Inner Sakura could do little more than watch silently as her dominant persona was now manipulated. She was caged, powerless to do anything while Danzo pulled her strings. The inner voice was completely disconnected from the Ma and Sakura. What is root? How did he do that genjutsu? There were no hand seals, nor did he channel his chakra the usual way. It almost seemed like a dojutsu. But not even Kakashi-sensei could cast illusions as overwhelmingly strong as this one. Damn it. How on earth did he even manage to lock me away? Or is it because she agreed with his ideas? Hell no. She wouldn't be stupid enough to run away from the pain, would she? You gotta be fucking kidding me. Hyuga stared at the group, completely baffled for a second. These idiots are attacking us. All genin. We saw a few of them when we watched the finals alongside Orochimaru-sama. Kidomaru frowned. Hyuga, you should take the coffin with you. Retrieving Sasuke is our main objective. Saken, Jirobo, and I will be more than enough to deal with these pieces of thrash. I'm going to tear them apart. Saken hissed his agreement. Don't do anything completely retarded. You guys just released your second level to take on that one eye, and haven't had enough rest to recover already. Hyuga picked up the wooden coffin in which they had just sealed Uchiha Sasuke. He would be Orochimaru's vessel. He was a far cry from Kimimaro, but with the last Kagaya in comatose condition right now, Orochimaru would find the Uchiha more than satisfying. He probably wouldn't give a shit if we live or die in this mission, as long as we retrieve this faggot, she thought bitterly. Not that our opinions matter. The four of us were fucked the moment he got that seal on us. This Uchiha faggot won't be an exception. If only I could burn down this entire fucked up world. Seeing their target take the coffin and vanish into the woods behind, Shikamaru and Hinata knew they would have to get past the other three quickly, or the red-headed girl would slip away. Troublesome. Women always are troublesome. Didn't we run enough already? Shikamaru looked at the others. Anyone got a way to split those three up, and quickly? He whispered. Tenten gave him a wide grin and took out one of her scrolls. Would exploding tags do? Karen, help me with this, she said softly. Yes, Karen nodded vigorously. We will show them what Ni-san taught us. Just throw one volley. After that we will rush in. Shikamaru looked at the others. Kiba, Lee, Neji, you three are the fastest among us, so rush towards your opponents immediately. Keep them occupied, so that they don't get an opportunity to stop Hinata and me from chasing that red-haired girl. Across the clearing, Kidomaru was lazily stretching his 6 arms. What do you think they are whispering about? Who cares? Let's just crush them, he heard back. It was painfully obvious to Kidomaru that Saken was completely insane now. Then again, he never told us the truth about his relation to Uken. We assumed they were brothers, but perhaps they were just two halves of the same being, and with one half dead, the other is crippled. This stupid battle might get more troublesome than anticipated. For some odd reason, Shikamaru suddenly wondered if he had not picked the wrong opponent. They are very bold, hunting us down and attacking us like this. Jirobo broke the silence that had fallen while Saken awaited Kidomaru's approval to attack. I wonder if they are just stupid, or if they actually think they have a chance against us. Probably both. Saken laughed, although it sounded more hysterical than actually amused. Hyuga has gotten enough of a lead by now. Do you think we have to wait? I told you already, if there is an opportunity to take all these 9 morons down in one strike, it is pivotal to keep them together. And if we spread out, can I? Kidomaru frowned. A straightforward attack like this. Are you kidding me? The trio easily dodged, though Jirobo noticed that these kunai were. A rapid series of explosions cut him off before he could even warn the others. Jirobo jumped right, and saw Kidomaru jumping away at the other side of the cloud of smoke and dust. Where is Saken? The robustly built shinobi wondered, not that he got a chance to look. 2 drill-like cyclones forced him to back down even further into the woods. Fire. She had never liked it. She couldn't fathom what Tenten found so appealing about fire either. Fire is pain, anguish, fear. How could someone be excited by it? Karen asked herself. She hated the element more than any other. It always filled her worst nightmares. The largest of the 4 was currently busy fending of the Gatsuga of both Kiba and Akamaru. Jirobo had managed to evade the first couple of attacks, but was now seriously pushed into defense. As he was separated from Saken, who was currently busy fending off the quick as lightning Rock Lee, and Kidomaru, Jirobo was no longer amused by what he had thought to be a common band of weak genin. These pieces of trash are far better organized than I would have expected from a couple of inexperienced genin. They weren't like this during the exams. Doden. Doroku Geishi. Jirobo growled. The jutsu created a large wall of solid earth in front of him, enough to stop Akamaru in his Jujinbunshin form, though the cracks left in the wall were more than enough to let the pup's partner through. Go Kiba-kun. Karen cheered when she saw that the Gatsuga had finally made a direct hit. Unlike Karen, though, Choji kept paying close attention. Nikuden Sensha. He bloated up, and spinning at high speeds, he rushed towards Jorobo as a human bullet tank. He had seen the black markings spread over Jirobo's body, and just after he started his jutsu, Kiba was smacked away. Haosho. Karen gasped when Choji flew back. The palm of the Sound Nin's hand had struck so hard that it had deflected the human tank. As easy as it had seemed, Jirobo actually felt his wrist ache. That kid with the dog is annoyingly fast, but that fat weak-looking kid really packs a punch. I can't believe he managed to hurt me like this, despite the fact that I'm using the cursed seal already. He rubbed over his aching wrist. And although she conceded her training still left much room for improvement, her timing had been impeccable. Utilizing the moment Jirobo looked down to inspect his injury, Karen had thrown 3 kunai carrying explosive tags set with different delay times before they would explode. Kiba got onto his feet, quickly joined by Akamaru, who now looked like a feral copy of Kiba. Still a bit dazed, Choji quickly joined the Inuzuka. Once the first explosion went off, Karen jumped towards them as well. Can either of you hold him down for a moment? Kiba asked his impromptu teammates. Why? I can merge with Akamaru, using the Jinju Kanbi Henge. Sotaro. Kiba smirked when Jirobo was struck by a second explosion, just when he let his guard down. Nice thinking, Karen. Kiba smiled at the insecure-looking red-haired girl. Thanks. What's another transformation going to achieve though? Choji barely had more confidence. Archo Garoga will tear him apart, Kiba boasted, accompanied by a rather unnerving bark from the Kiba clone that was Akamaru. But I need to have a good aim. And worse, if used for too long, we'll both end up using most of our chakra, so we will be defenseless after the jutsu. An all-or-nothing type of move, Karen frowned. I'm not good enough with barriers to keep him trapped. I'll do it. Choji showed them a box with 3 compartments, 2 of them were filled. Karen wondered what the yellow and red pills would do. The Sanshoku no Ganiaku, the 3 colored pills, Choji sighed. I already took the green one. After he swatted me back like that, I realized I needed more strength. These pills are dangerous, but if this is the only way, the yellow one should make me stronger than he is right now. Struck twice by delayed explosive notes, Jirobo was furious. Buben Baika no Jutsu was all the warning he got, before a massive fist swatted him down like a fly. Dazed and confused, Jirobo realized the fat kid had somehow caught him. Damn this, do I have to use the second level just to get rid of these weaklings? The others will never stop making fun of. Cho Garoga. Jirobo gasped when a massive force hit him head on. Fire and smoke. Saken was dazed and confused by the onslaught of explosions surrounding him. Unlike Jirobo or Kidomaru, who could just jump aside, Saken was caught in the middle. Too enraged to hold back any longer, he just took the blasts. His brother had already died, and Saken already felt like part of him was torn away. Rog, he charged out of the cloud of smoke, blindly. Who cared about eyesight anyway? Or injuries? People with common sense would, but, well, that was not how one should describe Saken right now. He was as mindless as his demonic shape made him look. Horned, with his side covered in the demon leather-like plating, Saken just trusted his superior speed and strength would suffice against a couple of dumb genin. In a blur of speed, a red-skinned boy with a bowl-cut style of hair and huge eyebrows crashed into him. Having opened his third gate, Simon, Rock Lee was far faster than Saken. Sure, had Saken not lost his mind due to the anger, grief, and pain that consumed him, Saken might have had a chance. But right now, he felt like a pinball, caught in the middle of a furious flurry of attacks. Ino watched in awe as Lee apparently tore their opponent apart all on his own. I saw how good he was when he fought Naruto, but this, she gasped. I could feel how much stronger that guy suddenly got when he transformed, but Lee is even more powerful. Still, despite their apparent success, Ino worried that the other three kidnappers would be able to do similar transformations. Karen, Neji, and Hinata had said that they could take these shinobi down, but that was before they knew that these guys could transform into something drastically more powerful. Lee, make sure he doesn't move. Ino shouted. I need to finish this quickly. Konoha senpu. With a mighty kick, Lee face planted Saken deep into the burnt soil of the clearing. With a wide grin, he lifted his thumb up to show he was ready. Shintenshin no jutsu. Ino exclaimed. She would mess their opponent up from the inside. Considering how this guy was just brute, in her eyes, she thought that she would finish her job quickly. Lee wondered if he needed to help Choji, Kiba, and Karen first, or if he had to join his teammates. He had the utmost confidence in the abilities of Neji and Tenten, but Saken's transformation confused him. These opponents were far stronger than they had anticipated. And considering how their opponent had been weakened by Kakashi previously, Shikamaru had ordered Lee and Ino to make quick work of their battle. When they would win, they would act as backup for the others. Judging by the sound of several explosions in the forest, Lee realized that Choji's group was closer. Yash. Let's help our friends, and end this. Lee fell silent when Ino suddenly screamed. Contorting her face as if in incredible pain, Ino fell down in convulsive movements. She soon lost her consciousness, but before that she screamed her lungs inside out. Yamanaka Ino had underestimated the wounded and insane psyche of Saken. One could not enter a broken mind without the right preparations. The insane mind could not be entered without risk. The Yamanaka had strict protocols for that, and only those who mastered their family's jutsu to the highest degrees could enter such minds without facing grave risks. But how could Ino know about the damaged Ukon's death caused to the mind of Saken? That twisted mind rejected Ino's presence, immediately. The damage caused by Ino's jutsu, however, made Saken lose his last shreds of sanity. Unable to form words, the wounded demon roared. Surprised by the sudden defeat of his teammate, Lee reacted just a fraction of a second too slow. With a cruel hit to the face, Lee flew into the woods behind, only to be stopped by a rather uncomfortable landing against a particularly hard tree. Well, it was actually a large boulder, rather than a tree. But Lee could not know that. He could not see. All he saw was the demonic form of Saken, salivating like a wild dog, storming toward him. With a body that had not ached this much since he was granted the power of the cursed seal, Jirobo spat out a mouthful of blood. Only at the last second had he transformed to the second level of his cursed seal form, but Kiba's massive attack was too much for even him to block. Brute strength and endurance were his forte. To an extent, even Kimamaru praised Jirobo's physical ability, even though he would call Jirobo a moron in the same breath. Jirobo had not been born with special bloodlines. Sure, he had that weird ability to absorb chakra from others, but as far as Jirobo knew, that was not a bloodline limit. His parents had been perfectly ordinary civilians who had lived in a border town that had gotten mixed up in a petty war between far greater nations. In a tiny conflict which would not even be recorded in the history books, his family had been one of those which had gotten wiped out, even his little sister. He too had been left for death, but despite his injuries, Jirobo had buried his parents when he had eventually woken up. But his sister, there had been so much rubble, she could have been anywhere. To this day, he regretted that he had not sought for her longer. His kept on doubting. What if she had survived? But it had been pointless. Even if she had survived that raid, thrown out in the wild, his sister would not have lasted very long. Even Jirobo would have perished, had Orochimaru not found him. Who would have known that someone like him, a failed experiment, would be chosen as one of the greatest living shinobi's personal guards? Pride suffused him enough to endure the mockery from the other members. It had been worth all the experiments. As long as he did his duty, and made his savior proud of him, Jirobo would endure. Even if it left Jirobo almost unrecognizable at the end of the process, he would endure. Even if the experiments had changed his body into some kind of hulking behemoth, he would endure. A few broken ribs were a small price to pay, if it meant serving the one who had given him power. The torn muscles in his left arm were but a nuisance compared to the regret and hatred he still felt. He still wanted to avenge his family, to avenge his little sister, but attacking Kusagakure was not in Orochimaru's plans yet. He looked forward to the day when Otogakure would set out to conquer that accursed village. He would personally burn down that village, and annihilate all its shinobi. He would teach them the pain he had felt, all those years ago, but he would have to be patient. Perhaps squishing these bugs will amuse me for a bit. The lethargic red-skinned giant wondered. Lifting up a massive boulder, he smirked as he saw his enemies covered in the shadows he cast over them. The gigantic lump of earth was an impressive show of the destructive power his second level gave him. Jirobo saw his opponents lose their will to fight. But unlike normal, they did not run away. Not even the red-haired girl had fled. Whatever. Jirobo smirked. Doden. Dorio Dango. He moved so that he could hurl the giant boulder at them, and he knew what would happen. The entire area would be flattened. None of these pesky trees would last. Those three morons would be squished, like the bugs they were. Karen felt panicked. Hiba's all-out attack had not worked. Well, she had felt how Jirobo's chakra had suddenly spiked, and how much it had gone down again after Kiba and Akamaru's combination henge had hit him. But Jirobo was still going strong. Worse, Kiba and Akamaru both had been mostly exhausted by the Chogaroga. In addition, Kiba was bleeding profusely from a nasty gash at the side of his forehead. A move supposed to bring down fortifications was blocked by a single person. What the hell is that guy made of? Kiba growled. He still sustained a lot of damage. Kiba-kun. Karen hated herself for her shaky voice. She felt scared, terrified. Combat situations like these always seemed to cloud her mind. It was as if something dark lingered within her. Like her dreams, the fire, the screams, at times like these, those dreams seemed to haunt her even while awake. What the? Choji gasped when their now red-skinned opponent lifted a rock of epic proportions. How can a single human being carry that behemoth? How are we going to stop that? Kiba felt dejected. How could this guy be so insanely strong? This is something I can do, Karen realized. Throw me. What? Both boys gawked at her. Just throw me, Karen urged. She took out one of her sealing scrolls. A gift from Naruto, so that she could train on replicating it. Doden. Dorio Dango. They heard Jirobo shout, quickly changing his hand in the gigantic form it took due to his partially transformation technique. Choji picked up the Uzumaki and threw her on top of the rock. Not that hard, he didn't want to injure her, but he fall did strain her ankle. But that was of no concern now. Fuin. Karen cried out, desperately hoping and praying that this weight seal would be enough to stop Jirobo. The latter had just started to throw the massive boulder, when suddenly the boulder's weight amplified. The massive object nearly instantly lost its momentum, and started to fall down. While he still stood underneath. Oh crap, Jirobo mumbled in disbelief. Shogekusho. He cried out. Now it was his turn to hope the jutsu would be enough. When the upward palm thrust hit, clouds of dust covered him. But with an audible crack, the boulder broke. While Karen was still on top of it. Jumping free, Karen felt her strained ankle. But a little pain was preferable over being caught in this destruction. You alright? Kiba asked, rushing towards her with concern. Akamaru was limping behind him. Did it work? Karen ignored her aching leg. It would heal soon enough anyway. It was apparently one of the benefits of being an Uzumaki, as she shared this with Naruto. Dunno. I can't smell anything with all this dust. Dusting off her yellow blouse, Karen meanwhile used her sensory ability to figure out where the red-skinned opponent had gone. He took a considerable hit, his reserves have nearly halved. But he is still able to fight on. Kiba-kun, you should take food pills, you don't. Already took them. Akamaru too. Kiba shook his head. Taking more would be dangerous. We can't help the others if we are poisoned. Do you have more explosive tags? Choji took out the box with the 3 pills. Well, only one remained. The red one. Karen-san, can we defeat him as we are right now? He needed to know if he had to pay the price or not. I think he went underground. Watch out. The Moguragakure no Jutsu was a jutsu nearly every Doton user had to master. The versatility, despite its simplicity, made this jutsu one of the favorites among those who mastered the earth element, moving through the ground as graceful as a mole. Of course, Jirobo had learned this jutsu long ago. He was a great contrast to someone like Kiba, who perhaps shared the same affinity, but rather focused on his clan's techniques. He's underground. Then perhaps, Kiba formed 3 quick hand seals. Doton. Dosekiryu. He put in as much chakra as he could spare, and quickly located Jirobo. The soil underneath them had turned into a mudslide, trapping the Oto Nin. Just as Kiba wanted to grin that he caught the tem, Jirobo broke out. His left arm was already shredded, but the right arm strike against the super-weighted boulder had literally broken his right arm. Pure fury burned from Jirobo's eyes, and before any of the 4, counting Akamaru, could react, Jirobo already stood among them. The charge Jirobo executed, named Taken, in his unique Rakanken taijutsu style, took Kiba completely off guard. Kiba-kun. Karen cried out when she saw the bloodied Inuzuka slump down the tree he had crashed into. Akamaru howled, and furiously attacked Jirobo, using what little chakra he had left to form his Jujin Bunshin. Karen was too startled to focus on the fight though. She left it to the now angered Choji, who was supported by Akamaru. And in his battered condition, Jirobo could do little more than fending of their attacks. Kiba-kun. Say something. Please. Say something. Talk. You can't be. Number. No. Rock Lee spit out some blood. Saken had hit him hard. Feels like my cheekbone is broken. Not the most youthful feeling, his large brows merged down into a frown. To make things worse, Ino was out cold. Lee had no idea what happened to her, but her condition seemed stable. Nevertheless, she was a burden to him. The feral Saken made no distinctions. He attacked the unconscious Ino just as much as Lee himself. As such, Lee could not take any break, nor could he evade his opponent. If he gave Saken a window of opportunity, he might go after the defenseless Yamanaka. He could not let any harm come to her. Aside from the event itself being very unyouthful, Ino was also a precious friend of Sakura. Needless to say, the single-minded Rock Lee did not need additional motivation to give it his all. Simon is not sufficient. But if the 3rd gate is not enough to take him down, I have to use the 4th. That is seriously going to mess up tomorrow's training session, Lee sighed. But the 5th would make it impossible for me to help the others. Saken raged on, his demonic fist swinging wildly at Lee. Gate of pain it is, Lee smirked. Now he made his decision, he decided he might as well enjoy this a little. This was far better than regular training. Much more of a challenge. Showman. Yes, and if I manage to get Sasuke-san back to Konoha, Sakura-san will definitely be grateful. Unless I take too long. If I take too long, someone else might find Sasuke first, and win her heart. I can't let that happen. Even in his deranged condition, Saken could feel pain. The glowing shinobi who had just vanished, completely outmatched him. Saken felt the bones in his arm shatter. His face was bruised. Ribs were fractured by a foot or fist which Saken had not even registered. The damage to his organs would be catastrophic. Even with his damaged mind, Saken instinctively knew that there was only one option left to him. Only one path in which he would not end up being slaughtered by the green-clad freak. The already round and wide-open eyes of Rock Lee widened even further when after the latest strike, Saken had suddenly disappeared. He still heard the other boys' insane laughter though. But from where did the sound come? Lee looked left and right, but his opponent was nowhere to be seen. Ino was still behind the tree where Lee had left her. She was safe. Did he run away? Lee could not help but be disappointed. And how could he find the one who had literally invaded his body? The Kekkei Genkai which Saken and Uken were born with allowed them to merge with their opponent. On a molecular level, they could deconstruct themselves and invade another body, where they would reconstruct themselves once again. Right now, Saken shared a body with Rock Lee. Just like he had done with Uken, his entire life. Lee was left speechless when his own left fist suddenly punched him right in the face. The taijutsu specialist, who had honed his body to attain the nigh impossible level of strength and control which Meta Guy showed him, immediately realized he had momentarily lost control over his limb. In fact, his left shoulder felt off. Lee could not explain why, but something was wrong. Dispelling did not help, so this is not a genjutsu. My opponent has disappeared, and I suddenly lose control over my body. And that loss of control is not caused by a genjutsu, Lee mumbled to himself. It is as if I'm being controlled from that's it. Just like Sunagaku's puppeteer. Even with the full effect of the fourth gate, Lee could not prevent his hands from moving towards his throat. He is going to make me strangle myself. How disappointing. I suppose there is only one way to escape the puppeteer's threads. I must become even stronger. Toman. Kai. Lee knew that opening the fifth gate would render him immobile afterwards, but he could not allow his opponent to win. I am sorry everyone, it seems I won't be able to help you all, but at least I take down this unyouthful puppeteer. Opening the gate tore at his muscle tissue, seemingly tore everything apart. The pain it caused was at least as severe as the amount of power Lee gained. And this was what would undo Saken's control. Though not like Lee had mistakenly assumed, that Saken was hiding somewhere in the surrounding forestry, no, Saken was hiding inside Lee. And he felt every bit of pain Lee caused to himself. Unlike Lee, however, Saken was not trained to endure the degree of damage the 8 inner gates would cause to his body. What was a horrible pain for Lee, was something unimaginable for Saken. His body ruined, he fled Lee's body. His already broken from still crippled by the pain, Saken could not even stand straight. Lee was alerted when something behind him fell. He saw Saken, lying on the ground, and Lee did not hesitate for a second. In his pain, Saken lost control over his cursed seal. At the same time Lee lashed out with his supercharged konoha senpu, Saken reverted back to his basic form. The sheer force of Lee's kick snapped Saken's neck, shattered his cervical vertebrae. Lifelessly, Saken's body crashed into the soil. Lee did not understand what had just happened, but he did not really care either. The pain was severe, and all he really wanted was to lie down and get some rest. He dragged himself back to Ino, who was still unconscious. However, she was no longer as motionless and pale as before. She now seemed to be sleeping. Lee gritted his teeth. I suppose I will take some rest now. Hopefully the others have less trouble in their fights. He slumped down against a nearby tree, and closed his eyes. Despite the pain, his exhaustion was great enough to get him to snore right away. Ino and Lee were down for the count, but Saken was dead. A Pyrrhic victory, but a victory nonetheless. Trembling in fear, a little red-haired girl tried to push the man away. But that man, with that same hair color as she had, was too heavy. The smell was sickening, turning her stomach upside down. All that smoke, all that noise, what had happened? She vaguely remembered being dragged from her bed. That red-haired man had dragged her through the house, until they met that woman. The woman with her worried expression had scared her even more than the noise outside, and then everything had gone dark, until she woke up just now. Her head was still ringing, and her 6-year-old body felt numb. Heavy, even without the burden of these people on top of her. But who were these people? She didn't know. She did know that she felt dirty. A sticky, and partially dried layer of blood covered the left side of her head and shoulder. Her already red hair was soaked with it at that spot. But she could not feel any injury at all. Yes, her head ached, a lot even, but there was no gaping wound or anything. Again, she struggled to get free from the man and woman who lay on top of her. They felt cold and stiff, something that freaked her out. But no matter how hard she tried, she could not remember who these people were. His red hair was just like hers, and the woman wore that lavender dress that somehow felt so familiar. In her dazed and weakened condition, it felt like hours had passed before she managed to free herself. The man and woman both had horrible burns on their backs, and it almost seemed to her as if they had shielded her. But why would they shield her? Who were they? She didn't know. But the greenish discoloring at their shoulders and heads horrified her. The entire scene had a sense of wrongness which the small 6-year-old girl could not comprehend. And how could a girl of her age know what a corpse was? But that was not what occupied her mind right now. Who were these people? Why did they save her? And who was she? Even as she wandered through the street of the burnt-down village, with its streets littered with corpses, she could not find an answer to that question. Some things looked familiar. Like that one building on the corner of the street. She had somehow known that it was a shop that sold bottles that contained the special water which smelled so nice. Not that those bottles were still there, no, the colorful shop it once had been was now a smoldering ruin. In another street, she saw a boy, only a few years older than herself, who had the same remarkable red hair she had, only a few shades lighter, more like a dark orange than the crimson locks that fell from her own head. His face seemed so similar to the red-haired man who had shielded her from the fire. For some reason, the sight of the boy's torn body made her cry. She could not recall who he was, but seeing him like this made her feel as if her chest was torn apart. She cried and cried, grabbed the boy by his shoulders and shook him, but he did not respond. He was not as cold or stiff as the others, but his orange eyes would not open. And he was too heavy. But he would not smile at her like why can't I remember? Who am I? The little girl cried. Where is everyone? Help me, please. But no one came to help her. She wandered around for hours, but none she saw could respond to her. Everyone in the village had died. And the little girl didn't know why. Fire, smoke, and explosions, that was all she could remember. Who those two adults had been, who that boy had been, the girl did not know. She had forgotten everything, even her name. Her name, she would later discover, had been sewn into her blood-soaked jacket. Everything else was erased by the explosion which had caused that head injury. Karen. Kiba-kun. Say something. Please. Say something. Talk. You can't be. Number. No. Karen cried out. Her mind was flooded with the same horrified scenes as those that filled her nightmares. Her past, apparently. Her memories, buried because she did not want to remember that despair ever again. But seeing Kiba, his still form was so similar to that red-haired boy's. That sight had stirred something within herself, something she had not remembered in all these years. But she could do nothing for Kiba. She wished she could heal him, like Tsunade would have been able to do. She wished she had been stronger, so she could have protected him. She thought herself a failure of a kunoichi. Kiba, the boy who dragged her out of her miserable life, would just die in her arms. Her panic blocked out every other emotion. She did not see how Choji and Akamaru battled their opponent until his transformation receded and fell down. She did not see how Ino joined her at some point. The blonde half carried, half dragged the barely conscious Lee. In her state of catatonia, she did not even notice it when Kiba woke up. The boy awkwardly tried to comfort her, not even bothering to try to escape her grasp, but she never knew. Karen did not see how Akamaru leapt to them, glad that the boy she held was still alive, despite his loss of blood. The only thing loud enough to wake her from her stupor was when Ino screamed of the top of her lungs. Bonus. The marked man, too. 15 bottles of sake. It would cost Rado a small fortune, but if that was the price to ensure that Enko remained silent about him secretly running Konoha's most exclusive sake label, then even for a stingy person like him it would a price he would gladly pay. After all the time he had spent with Enko on this guard mission, he had no doubts that this woman could turn his life in a living hell if she wanted to. And after that meddlesome cat had shown her Rado's secret. He was Namiyashi Rado, the inconspicuous assassin. The Tokubetsu Jonin who never drew any attention. Not that he expected such attention. Ever since he was a kid, people looked at his scars first, and then they saw him. It made him rather unpopular among his peers at the academy, and ever since, he just tried to keep a low profile. His mother had died when he was very young, and a few years afterward, his father had presumably been killed in action. They never found his body. Consequently, Rado had mostly been raised by his grandfather. Even though Rado had been talented, and thus admitted into the academy, he had always been poor compared to his classmates. That unremarkable boy, however, grew up to be one of the 3 hand-picked shinobi who became elites under the Yondaime's tutelage. It had even drawn the attention of a shy girl his age. He never cared that she was clanless, those things never mattered for a person from an insignificant clan like him anyway. Rado had loved her with all his heart. And she had broken it, too, that fateful night when the Kyuubi broke free and attacked Konoha, Rado had lost her. How ironic that the very creature that had ruined his life by killing the woman he had loved, had been sealed within the son of the man whom he owned so much. Other people might know him for his efficiency, for his phrase, time is money. But the few people who had got to know Namiyashi Rado learned that he was fiercely loyal. Not to mention that he was a very honest person. They were odd traits for a man hailed as one of the best assassins of his generation. But as loyal and honest as he was, Rado wondered if he could really trust Mitarashi Anko. This woman was chaos in the flesh. The opposite of his precision, she seemed to thrive whenever things became a complete mess. With her easygoing and playful attitude, could this woman truly hold his secret? This known sadist, the former student of Orochimaru, would she be true to her word? So far, she just seems completely different from all the stories that are circulating. Though, I wouldn't be surprised if she just plans to keep blackmailing me. As Rado stood in front of the door to Anko's room, he could barely suppress the blush when he thought of how she made her demands. I totally fell for it. I know how she uses her charms for interrogation, but to get caught in her place this easily is simply embarrassing. He looked at the scroll which contained the 15 bottles. He knew he would probably meet Akko if he lingered for too long. As the building contained guest rooms, both Akko and Anko had claimed a room. Naruto had the master bedroom, while Karen also had a room. With Chi taking one room, Rado usually spent his nights in the last remaining room. So he knew very well how Akko was, and getting caught while he was bringing sake to Anko would be nothing less than suicide. After all, Anko's village-wide alcohol ban was still active. So, rather than hesitating like some teenage kid, he knew he needed to hurry up. If he got caught, it could even cost him his good name as well. No longer would he be deemed trustworthy, no longer would he be able to pride himself for following his orders to the letter. Let's get this over with. If she tries to blackmail me, then so be it, a grimace twisted his scarred face. I bet that the Hyuga will begin to pester me if they find out that I'm the one behind the marked man, though. They've always tried to dominate the market for luxury goods, Rado sighed. Resigning himself, he knocked on the door of Anko's room. To find it opened up by an Anko suffering one hell of a hangover. But the hangover was not what got Rado's blood rushing. She opened the door while wearing only her panties and a bra. The fabric being only a few shades pinker than her soft skin. The edges decorated with a lacing he had not expected of her. It was far more delicate than he would expect the woman with her tomboyish behavior to wear. Not that he disliked it. Oh no, in the contrary. He liked it very much. So much that the pressure of the blood accumulating behind his nose started to worry him. What I want, Anko groaned. The splitting headache made her squint, so she could barely recognize Rado. Nor did her headache allow her to hear properly. This was a good thing, because Rado needed a few extra moments to restart his frozen-up brain. This had truly been the last thing he expected. How on earth did you get alcohol despite your ban? Was the first thing that came to mind that wouldn't make him sound like a complete sexist. The smell of booze was too pervasive to ignore. Crap. Akko. I didn't doctor. Oh, it's you. Anko finally managed to open her eyes. You nearly gave me a heart attack there. Geez, I thought you were Akko. Get in, before she sees ya. Awkwardly, Rado shuffled in. Meanwhile, Anko staggered back to the couch she had been sleeping on ever since she passed out last night, giving him a full view of her barely covered backside. I had to tap into my emergency reserve, Anko admitted. No shop sells me alcohol, and I'm not going to drink the crap they sell at the clanless district. I'm not that desperate. Yet. Their sake is crap. Why doesn't she even attempt to dress herself? Rado mused. He knew he would have less trouble suppressing his annoying blush if she had worn a bit more, though the view was definitely not bad. Oh, is it that scroll? Anko got enthusiastic when she noticed what Rado held in his left hand. How much? With star-sprinkled eyes she looked at him, suddenly wide awake. 15. Rado mumbled. Please let it be enough, he begged internally as his eyes wandered around in order to find something to focus on other than her gorgeous round number. Stop thinking like that. Get your mind out of the cleavage. Gutter. Out of the gutter. 15. Anko gasped. Quick as lightning, she grabbed the scroll and unwound it. I never thought he would take my silly demand seriously. This would have cost a small fortune if I had to buy it at the store. Just before she could jump up and thank the man like she had planned to, she suddenly saw his expression change. Is that enough to make sure you remain silent about this? Rado sighed, his blush having paled. I've already made sure the cat shuts up about it. Unlike his flustered behavior earlier, he had suddenly become distant. Not knowing how to respond, partially due to the intoxication of last night, Anko just nodded dumbly. Good, I'll be going then. I'm sorry to have disturbed you, Rado muttered emotionlessly. He turned around and left her room. Oh, okay, Anko blinked. Her cheerfulness vanished like snow under the summer sun, because there was a reason why Mitarashi Anko been drinking this much, Rado. As long as she could remember, Anko had been a loner. Talented beyond her years, she had always been surrounded by much older kids during her time at the academy. When she graduated, Orochimaru had noticed her, a talented, yet no-name orphan. Yet her pride had not lasted long. When she was later discarded by her teacher, she found that upon the news of his betrayal, she too was seen as a traitor by the inhabitants of Konoha. Of her old friends, only Yuhi Kurenai had truly been able to look past her outgoing and wild behavior. Only Kurenai knew about the vulnerable side Anko had. Admittedly, Naruto had been able to rip right through her facade on several occasions as well. Perhaps it was because they shared the same burden, both being shunned for something they could not help. People hated Anko for her cursed seal. They said she had to be a terrible person if she was Orochimaru's student. Men had noticed her for her beauty, but left her just as easily. Though the sex was fun while it lasted, it had only felt empty to Anko. They just used her, while she used them. When she saw how Kurenai lived with Asuma, Anko she hated herself for being jealous. The childish dreams of love, which she had abandoned long ago, had suddenly played tricks on her again. But who was I kidding? I thought that Rado was different. That perhaps he could. I'm such a fool. I blackmailed him because he's such a damn hard guy to drag out of his comfort zone, and because of it I only confirmed the bad image he must have had of me. Anko pulled her legs up, lying down like a ball on her suddenly uncomfortable couch. This mission is the most fun I've had in years, and now I'm fucking it up again. Akko sees me as a nuisance and Rado seems to hate me. How long until the kid will share their opinion? And I can't blame them. I'm a total fuck up. Every time someone gets close, I give them a reason to leave me behind. She had been drinking herself unconscious because she had been all tensed up. She meant just to make a playful joke with Rado, but he took it so seriously. He always acted so serious. She just wanted to give him a little push in her direction. And as flustered as he had seemed the day before, and now that he saw her in her underwear, it seemed to have worked. But why had he suddenly changed like that? Pissed off, she jumped up from the couch and stamped to her bed. No one would give her the cold shoulder like that. But what she saw on her bed made her freeze in her tracks. That is what he saw, that is why he changed. Anko felt crushed. He must think I'm some kind of cheap whore, a fickle slut who'd seduce just about everyone. She had meant to thank Rado for his sake in a more active way, hoping that perhaps something could grow out of it. But now that she saw what was lying on her bed, she couldn't even blame him for suddenly losing his flustered air, for suddenly becoming so cold. He must think that I was just playing with his emotions. She peeked around the corner. Rado had left with a face that was devoid of any emotion, yet she could sense his inner turmoil in his chakra. But seeing that Anko was on the verge of tears, with Guy's spandex suit next to her on the bed, she realized that she had made a horrible mistake with her prank. As much as she loved teasing Anko, she never intended to make her really miserable. But whatever occurred between Anko and Rado, she knew that leaving the suit there had something to do with it. I have to fix this, don't I? Chapter 55. Reinforcements. Damn it, Neji. Don't rush off on your own. Tenten growled toward the direction the Hyuga had just gone and vanished. After she and Karen had driven the trio of adversaries from Odogakure apart, and Hinata and Shikamaru had slipped by, Tenten had followed Neji with the aim of defeating their six-armed opponent as quickly as possible. But their opponent turned out to be a smart one. Realizing that he would have more difficulty fighting the two of them at once, Kitamaru had kept his distance and constantly tried to lure Neji towards him, while hindering Tenten from getting close with his arrows. Unfortunately for him, Tenten was just not simply Konoha's next weapon's mistress. The kunoichi had trained under Maeda Guy, alongside Rock Lee and Neji himself. She did not lag that far behind in physical prowess at all. So many had told her that kunoichi could never be good at taijutsu, told her that women were too weak, but she proved them all wrong. It was not that she mastered any specific taijutsu style, like Neji or Lee, but still, dodging a few hastily aimed arrows was definitely something she could do. But it did slow her down a little, just enough to prevent her from catching up with Neji. Quickly collecting more web, Kitamaru spat out another few wires. Much to his annoyance, the Hyuga had been able to evade his previous trap. He had even destroyed it, so that the girl would not be caught in it either. Still, the dense forestry played to Kitamaru's advantage right now. Leaping onto a thick branch, Neji stared at his opponent. With his Byakugan activated, he could see Tenten would catch up soon. He could not, however, understand the smug grin on his opponent's face. Why is he so confident? We should have the advantage. And unless he found some way to hide his true power from me. So much for the all-seeing moniker of your dojutsu, Kitamaru chuckled. Neji looked down. You covered the entire branch with that sticky. Bingo. A few hand seals later, and wires wrapped themselves around the surprised Hyuga. I don't have time to play with you, Neji said coldly. This stickiness, it is made by mixing his chakra with his body fluid. And there are still some traces of his chakra within it, which would explain why it is so strong. That was what Karen noticed. I'm only seeing it from this close. How incredibly accurate is her sensory ability. You just stick around, while I go play with your little girlfriend. From his mouth he drew 6 long and thick threads of web. They were denser than those arrows he created earlier, and had a different color. With his eyes, Neji saw that the amount of chakra poured into them was far greater. Kumo Nenkin, Kitamaru announced his sticky spider thread. Neji saw the spikes harden, forming strong dagger-like weapons. Then he watched as the Oto Nin make his second mistake. He rushed forward to challenge Tenten in a close combat weapons battle. Had it been his old self, Neji realized, he would have made fun of the boy's mistake, and claimed that his imminent defeat was merely his fate. Naruto, however, had changed him. No, not just Naruto. Hinata-sama was the one who truly is responsible. Without her I would not even have had the chance to change myself, Neji considered. After all, Naruto had easily admitted that he would have killed Neji if not for her request. Focusing his chakra, and expelling it from his entire body, Neji broke free from the web that held him down. I cannot waste any time. Not on the useless sentiments for my father, whose actions are still a mystery to me. And not for what Naruto and Hinata-sama did for me either. I have to hurry up and beat this guy. Hinata-sama has gone after that red-haired girl, and I have to help her. I cannot let her be harmed. I cannot let that happen. Not for Naruto, but especially not for the clan. Father always talked about saving the branch, but she is the only one who is in the position to do so. She is the only one who can liberate the branch without any more anguish. Tenten blocked Kitamaru's strikes with her sword and her tonfa. But even while dual-wielding, she was outmatched by Kitamaru's 6 arms. But despite being outnumbered 6-2, she still blocked his attacks effortlessly. She simply was that much more skilled when it came to close combat with weapons. Grabbing the initiative and launching a counterattack, though, was not something she could do right now. But she knew Neji would come soon. He would not be held down by some lousy trap. No, all she needed to do was distract her opponent so that Neji could ambush him. Taking risks now would be unnecessary. Something made with chakra would never be able to hold Neji down for too long, Tenten assured herself. That went easy, Shikamaru mused. Too easy. Things never go that easy. That 6-armed guy definitely saw that Hinata and I slipped by. Why didn't he take the shot? He looked right at me, and he had clear aim. Or did he believe she doesn't need to help? If he thinks she can handle a 2-against-1 match while carrying Sasuke at the same time, I bet this red-haired girl is one troublesome piece of work. Shikamaru-san, we are gaining on her, Hinata noted, as she stared into the distance with her Byakugan activated. Shikamaru wouldn't tell her, but those bulging veins and that determined expression made her look quite fierce. The casket seems to be slowing her down. You should be able to see her soon. Just my luck. I team up with the one girl who never seemed to be that troublesome, and she turns out to be troublesome anyway. It's always the silent ones, he sighed to himself. Good. You will hide, while I try to ensnare her in my shadows. With an ambush, that shouldn't be too troublesome. Once I have her, you use your Jukin and disable her. 50 meters, was Hint's sole reply, with no stutter, no hesitation. Right now, the girl was determined to act quickly. Perhaps I shouldn't have told her that Naruto would quickly give chase once he heard that she went out on this clandestine mission. The usually lazy Nara shook his head. Rushing now would be stupid, you know that, right? The heiress of the Hyuga, even she only held that position in name alone, glared at him. If we do not hurry, Sasuke-san might get out of our reach. And the sooner we finish our fight, the sooner we can aid the others. You think the others would lose? No. But, I don't like it that they. Hinata. They are all shinobi. Neji, Lee, and Tenten have an additional year of experience, so they know what they are doing. And I doubt Kiba and Karen would get in much danger. I mean, if not for Genjutsu, Kiba could have beaten Sasuke in the prelims, and I have confidence in Ino and Choji. Quote. Choji might be a soft-hearted guy, but he is undoubtedly strong. His family's jutsu would make him one of the physically strongest shinobi of our age. And Ino, while she has an annoyingly big mouth, I have a complete trust in her abilities when it comes to the Shintention no Jutsu. Don't you wish to help them, Shikamaru-san? If I rush now, I could end up wounded or perhaps even dead. I'd be no help to them in that case, would I? Shikamaru raised one eyebrow. And knowing you, you'd be worried about Naruto too. I didn't. Don't be so troublesome, why do you even try to deny it? Shikamaru sighed. They sped through the forest, chasing an opponent of unknown strength, and yet Hinata managed to get all flustered. Considering his temper, if you get yourself injured, he would lose it. And when he says that he held back while beating up Neji, I truly do not wish to find out what happens if he doesn't hold back. And I definitely do not want to end up dying in some horrid way if he decides to blame me when you get injured. I'm not sure I understand what Godime-sama said about the Sadaime reinforcing Naruto's seal, but I am not going to take any risk. Not with Naruto, Shikamaru said lazily. So let's focus on our fight, okay? Oh okay. Though I have to say that the determination you showed earlier was not a bad thing. Just don't rush things. The girl in the navy blue pants and cream-colored jacket nodded. Neji. What brings you here at this time? Naruto-san. Neji bowed his head to show his respect. Don't do that, please. What? All that respect. I'm not some kind of clan head or something. You seem to have changed quite a lot. Look who is talking. Naruto's sweat dropped. But you heard the Godime. The Sandaime helped me more than I could ever explain. Naruto smiled gently. No longer do I have that constant paranoia, nor that constant anger. I feel like I was suddenly liberated. Did your goals change when you changed? Nope. I'm going to be the next Hokage, and fix everything that Arrow Cage hasn't fixed at that time. Believe it. Naruto grinned his goofy grin. But that expression did not last long, because he knew why Neji approached him. But you are here because of the Hyuga clan, aren't you? I was approached, like you predicted, Neji admitted. Indirectly, of course, and through someone of the branch who obviously did not do so out of free will. I am keeping tabs on him, but so far I haven't found anything concrete. Nor was anything axed from me, it was only concerning the possibility of whether I still hated Hinata-sama. But you wouldn't be here if you had not found anything, Naruto sighed. I assume you found something that troubled you, judging by your expression. My grandfather. There is no concrete evidence, absolutely nothing that points his way, but something about him seems off. Hyuga Hideo. Naruto grimaced. Talk about a slippery snake. Although, I've never been able to find anything on him either. But he definitely feels wrong. And if I'm not mistaken, I once heard him order a branch member to poison some cinnamon buns. I never found anything though, And considering how he is the grandfather of Hinata, I thought I misheard. Do you think he was behind the murder on my father? Naruto shrugged. That old man feels wrong, but if he is responsible for that, I can't say. Feel. Yes, I'm a Jinchuriki, remember. For some reason, the Kyuubi makes me feel the darkness in other people's hearts. A useful ability. Neji furrowed his brow. You think. Seriously, when the bastard had a strong grip on me, I felt darkness everywhere, Naruto sighed. It made me paranoid, a security freak. I always expected that someone would try to stab me in the back whenever I couldn't pay enough attention. Like your Anbu guard. Exactly. I bet that your Byakugan puts you in a similar position. Seeing the truth must be as much of a burden as it is a gift. And still we are fooled by our senses. In my case, simply because I was overwhelmed. Nearly everyone has some darkness, Naruto watched Neji grimace. The Hyuga are no different. You said you could see a person's fate itself. I know it isn't just you who believes that. Your grandfather has that same arrogance. I guess it is the greatest flaw those amazing eyes give you, the blonde chuckled. As gifted as you may be, even your senses delude you into believing you sense everything. While no one can ever sense everything, there exists nothing that is truly perfect. We always have some kind of blindness we're not aware of. Neji saw Tenten hop over the tree branches, towards him. I thought you had him, she said in disbelief. He made some kind of armor with that web-like substance of his, Neji grimaced. Why did I think back about Naruto's words? Though, his analysis was correct. I was arrogant. No, I am still arrogant. I thought I would just beat this guy quickly, and help Hinata-sama. It blinded me. My emotions blinded me. And now I have wasted all that chakra on the Hokage Rokujian show. What's the plan? You engaged him in close combat. How good is he? The Hyuga axe. He's asking for my opinion. Now there's a new one. Tenten frowned. He isn't particularly strong, nor is he that fast. But he has 6 arms, making him difficult to deal with nonetheless. He seemed more like a mid-range combatant, Neji agreed. He's the intelligent type, a strategist rather than a brawler. But the annoying part is that this guy has been holding back so far. Did you hear those explosions earlier? They were rather distant, Tenten shrugged. I guess Karen threw more tags. At this range, I can barely see Lee's fight. These guys can somehow increase and change their powers. Bingo, Kidomaru chuckled. The hardened web fell from his skin, showing that Neji's surprise attack had done absolutely nothing. No, not bingo, Tenten waved him goodbye while smirking. Spurring open his eyes in surprise, Kidomaru could barely blink before the barrage of explosive tags around him set off. Good thinking. That armor may have been an excellent defense, but it also left him blinded to his surroundings, Neji smiled slightly. It was the typical frugal, Hyuga smile, as Tenten had labeled it. Her own smile was a lot wider. However, the two of them remained vigilant. This guy was definitely not an ordinary opponent. Son of a, Hyuga growled to herself as she turned around. One of the pale-eyed freaks. Just fucking great. Easy illusions barely work on those fucktards. Did everyone else kick the bucket already? No. It seems more likely that those lazy assholes just let them slip by, so fucking typical of those half-assed bastards. Hinata did not respond, other than shifting into a fighting stance. She was still too far away from the red-haired girl to engage her in taijutsu, but that was not her goal. And Hyuga saw it. After all, she had seen Neji's fight during the finals, disguised as she was at that moment. Not that Hyuga was worried in any way. She was far too confident in her own skills for that. Trying to stall me. That would mean, from the corner of her eyes, she saw black tendrils creeping towards her. Shadows. Troublesome. Why did you have to dodge that? Shikamaru sighed wearily. I know I should have let Neji take you down. Women are just too troublesome to fight. One of those pale-eyed freaks, and a lazy bum like you, while I've got to protect this pansy as well. Fuck this. Hyuga just threw the bucket that contained Sasuke into the dense bushes that were at the foot of the tree she currently stood upon. While pulling out her flute, she smiled deviously at the two. I'll clean you up in seconds. It's still 2-on-1, we've got the advantage on our side. It's nothing two can't take care of. Shikamaru suddenly changed his attitude. Let's go. Hinata. Confused, but only for an instant, Hinata waited with her answer. She had seen something she just couldn't explain, but it seemed to be nothing. Looking at the Nara, she nodded and rushed forward. Advantage. Hyuga laughed. You stupid pieces of trash. It won't make a difference to me how many there are, bring it on. She used her flute to block Shikamaru's kunai, and watched as, wait, where is that bitch? Hyuga's eyes widened. You're not taking that faggot back to your village. I'm on a mission here, and I've got no interest in fighting a few retards like you. So go fuck yourself with a rubber kunai, but stop pissing me off, damn it. Not that Hinata listened. She took the casket that contained the last, what she believed to be loyal Uchiha, and rushed back. This had been Shikamaru's contingency plan. Stall Hyuga, and in the meantime get Sasuke out. Before Shikamaru's shadows could connect to his target, however, something disrupted his shadow tendrils. What the? Hyuga-chan, tisk tisk. I don't think Kenta would be pleased if he learned his pet was screwing up as badly as this. Kitamaru was not the type of person who got angered quickly. Usually, he just saw his fights as a game. It was his way of coping with the hardships of his life. And with his level of skill, this meant that he was the one playing with his opponents. Today was not such a day, though. The explosions had taken him off guard, and had hurt him considerably. He had been hurt by a few fodder types like the pale-eyed boy and the girl with the silly buns on her head if only he could decide which of the 6 palms he had to slap against his forehead. But no, this was no longer a game, this was payback. These fools had just entered the bonus level, and he would be their final boss, their last boss. And for that, he would show them his final form. He dropped his forehead protector to unveil his third eye. His skin darkened. His canines and nails grew longer, and the horns that grew on his head only made him look more demonic. Kuchio's no jutsu, he summoned Kyodagumo. You deal with that annoying girl, he ordered the gigantic black spider with its orange stripes. I think I just pissed him off, didn't I? Tenten asked her teammate with a deadpan expression. Naruto would love the spider though. You think we should try to catch it for him? Perhaps it would permanently destroy his love for the color orange. Neji smirked. While the spider spread its threads throughout the surrounding trees, Kitamaru spat small webs at the 2 genin. Neji had to admit that it could have been an annoying skill, if not for him being a Hyuga. Cutting the wires with his chakra was child's play to him. You attack, I'll defend, Neji said. Placing 2 scrolls on the ground, Tenten didn't even nod to show her agreement. Her Soshoryu, her twin rising dragons, would be an attack that would drain her of most of her weaponry, but they had to get rid of that giant black and orange spider first. The 2 scrolls released a cloud of smoke, confusing Kitamaru for a second. Tenten then jumped between the 2 scrolls that flew up from the smoke, and started to rapidly summon and throw all sorts of weaponry as a powerful projectile barrage. Not expecting such a furious attack, Kitamaru could merely evade it. Those weapons got stuck at his sticky webs anyway. But he had never been the girl's target. With an explosion of webs, Kyodagumo disappeared. The creature had been covered with so many weapons that it could not have stayed out any longer. You fucking piece of trash. Kitamaru seethed. It seems you just pissed him off even more, Neji remarked dryly. Damn it. That pale-eyed trash is dangerous if I let him get too close. My spider bind is useless against him, making him even worse. Close combat truly seems suicide against the Juken fighting style. But ranged combat is equally annoying due to that girl. How on earth could she unleash such a barrage of weaponry? Kitamaru thought as he vanished between the trees. If she can't see me, I can attack from the... He's there. Neji pointed, with his Byakugan activated. On it. Tenten threw a trio of spears at the precise location where Kitamaru was. Had been, at least. Upon dodging, Kitamaru's reply was a barrage of web-made shuriken. Hakusho Kaden. Fuck. I forgot this guy had such a strong defense as well. They are truly hacks. It's an unfair advantage, but Kitamaru knew that whining would not help. He needed to act, and fast. I've had enough of this game. Let's see how you stop this. Kitamaru had noticed the small crater the Kaden had left in the soil. He knew that Neji's defense could not protect Tenten from every direction. With his Kumo Senkyo, his spider war bow, aimed and ready, Kitamaru knew what he had to do to take his revenge. Neji realized it just a fraction too late. How is he? Kakashi didn't get famous for just any reason. He'll recover. His injuries were deep though. If Guy and his team had not found him, he could have bled out, Tsunade sighed. I'll get the bastards who did this, though for some reason I had to send out 5 different teams. Why so many? My informants, they contradict each other. Even the ones who I am 100% sure have no ties with Orochimaru, Jiraiya frowned. Someone else is meddling. Perhaps the other villages are trying to get their hands on the last Uchiha as well. Or someone from within Konoha. I honestly can't say. But I do know that I have to check my sources in the near future. Thoroughly. But that is something for later. The poor Aburame kid isn't even buried yet. How is the girl? She's been through a lot now. The Senju made a sad grimace. Her physical injuries are not the problem. When the residuals of that paralyzing poison are out of her system, she'll be back in perfect health. But mentally, losing her parents first, and then this happens, Jiraiya agreed with her assessment. I think I'll give her some time before I even consider asking her to take even easy missions. I don't really know the girl, all I know is what I've read from the reports, but her behavior is a bit off. When I checked up on her just now, she is traumatized. You of all people should know that traumas make people do strange things. Jiraiya patted her on the shoulder when he saw her lip tremble, if only for the fraction of a second it took her to compose herself again. Why don't you keep her around in the hospital? You could help the girl, and if she does some shifts that don't put her in situations that are too stressful for her, you could also keep an eye on her. Who knows, it might help you a bit too. Tsunade glared at her former teammate and current, though she didn't like to admit it, superior. I'm not the same as I was. I know, he laughed. That kid got you good, didn't he? It's weird how he can affect people. You sound awfully proud, Tsunade smiled. And with good reason. I can't imagine how much trouble the kid must have had. And still he endured it all. He's my godson, of course I'm proud. To last this long with a seal that wasn't even finished, I still don't understand how Sensei and I did not see that before. It seemed to be perfect. I wonder what was incomplete about it. But he really benefited from Sensei's last actions, didn't he? It seems only Anko kept him as a paranoid sadist, as she called him. But I think that seeing that goofy little kid I once knew return is a lot better, Jiraiya said with twinkling eyes. Although, he will have some issues when it comes to controlling the Kyuubi's chakra at first. And his experiences will leave their marks on him as well. Are you still planning to train him in? Tsunade was cut off when an Anbu operative suddenly rushed into the hospital room. Hokage-sama, she panted. There are a couple of genin who left the village. What? And that is not the worst part. Godime-sama, the Anbu hesitated. The Jinchuriki, both of them. Neji. Tenten looked at her teammate, too shocked to properly process what had just happened. She saw Neji deflecting the mighty arrow Kitamaru shot at them. The bow was so powerful that even with his chakra-enhanced hands, Neji had received injuries. But somehow, when Neji blocked the arrow, exactly as Kitamaru had planned, the Oto Nin had used his threads to quickly move to another angle. With a second arrow at the ready, he took the shot, only a few moments after Neji had blocked the first. But unlike the previous arrow, which came straight at Neji, this one came from the side. It was aimed at Tenten, the one who gave Kitamaru the most troubles. With no time to think things through, the Hyuga had gone with his first instinct. He pushed Tenten out of the arrow's path. Neji, why? She looked at the hole that went right through his shoulder. I'm fine, he said with a pained expression, a futile attempt to comfort her. And he knew it. I knew I could spend some time to find a weak spot in your defenses, but this was way more entertaining, Kitamaru chuckled. He looked down on the two from a tree branch. And with that one arm out of commission, you won't be much of a threat to me, all the more time for you, darling. Leaping forward, Kitamaru formed a great spear with his chakra. In his injured condition, Neji couldn't do anything to stop him. Tenten, watch you, out, he gasped when he saw the spear run through the kunoichi's chest. Not wasting a second, Kitamaru used his threads, as a true equilibrist, and charged at the wounded Hyuga. Even with one arm, I'm still going to kill you. How dare you? Tenten. With 2 hands holding the threads he balanced on, Kitamura had 4 daggers. Each of them aimed for Neji's vitals. These pieces of trash had dared to injure him, and he would punish them for their audacity. If, however, the Sound Four had one fatal flaw they all shared, it would be their arrogance. Like their master, they were overly proud. Unlike Orochimaru himself, though, this overconfidence was not tempered by years of experience and a mountain of knowledge and skill that exempted them for this arrogance. Neji may have had a gaping hole through his shoulder that immobilized his right arm, but he still had his left arm. Dodging right, Neji did not even mind that his already injured left side sustained another stab. No, he focused purely on his counterattack, and haste, seeing the amounts of blood he was losing. He wanted to kill Kitamura before he would pass out. He needed to avenge Tenten. One thrust at Kitamaru's throat with Neji's gentle fist style caused more damage than any knife to his side could have done. It was a good trade, in the Hyuga's opinion. Duck. Neji reacted on instinct, barely processing that this was the voice of someone he believed to be dead. With a mighty crash, Tenten's giant war axe tore Kitamaru in half. The weight seal which the kunoichi had applied to the weapon made the damage far more devastating than even Tenten had anticipated. Even after tearing through her opponent, Tenten could not stop the swing. The axe would simply continue its downward movement, unstoppable. The axe bit its way through a tree before it finally dug itself deep into the ground. Here, Naruto threw a scroll towards Tenten. It's a copy of a weight seal, which includes some presets which you could switch between when activated, so that it is easier to apply to the weapons you wield. Whoa, thank you Naruto, that jutsu was amazing. Tenten was in awe of what she had just done. Only for a second, because she realized that Neji was in rather bad condition right now. How? Neji blinked. I saw that spear. I thought that spear had gone right through your heart. Kawarimi no jutsu, Tenten explained. Though only barely in time. But I just left an ordinary clone, while I took out my axe. Can you still? Neji slumped down, leaning against the nearest tree. You should go and help Hinata-sama. I can't, not in my current condition. And leave you here. Are you nuts? My fate is unimportant. Hinata-sama is crucial for my family, I am not. You are my teammate, so don't give me that nonsense of you being expendable. I am going to get you back to the others. Once we catch up with Lee and the others, we can go to Hinata together. Nothing I say will change your mind, will it? Neji sighed in defeat. He knew far too well how stubborn the girl could be. You make it sound like I never listen to others, she pouted. You are rather fierce, even scary, when the situation calls for it, Neji deadpanned. I just saw you chop down on opponent, one who was at least of Chunin level, and a tree. In one swing, I can't believe how much you have grown. Tenten blushed, embarrassed by the praise, especially from someone like Neji. Naruto really changed your life, didn't he? Not just mine. I see, he thought as he looked at her, strangely saddened by the realization of the emotions he saw on her face. It seems it is not just Hinata who admires Naruto. These days, he smirked at her, hiding his own emotions. Looking away, but unable to hide the intensifying blush, Tenten just said nothing. I don't have much bandages, do you have any in your pack? Here. Neji with a sense of humor, it seems like his change is really thorough. I wonder if that is all the effect of Naruto freeing him from the Hyuga clan's seal. But why is he comparing my admiration to Hinata? She is far. Wait, I am giving the impression that no. No, that can't be. He couldn't see that, could he? Shikamaru watched in horror as he saw Hinata fall. Dozens of shadow tendrils pierced her arms, making her cry out in pain and leaving her bleeding profusely. And if this was not shocking enough to the young Nara, he also saw what he could only describe as a ghost. Oji-san, how? You died, he stammered. My cute little nephew is still so naive, the black-haired man smirked. His dark outfit resembled that of an Anbu operative, although rather than having a gray flak jacket, he had a pitch-black one. I suppose my accursed brother-in-law failed to teach you how the world really works. You committed suicide. I suppose my little act was more convincing than I anticipated, the traitorous Nara shrugged. To Yuya-chan, make sure these two are killed. They're your prey. Or I will make sure you will get assigned to Amor for a few weeks. You're at the age he likes to see his girls most, so you better make quick work of these morons. Unless you want him to enjoy your body over and over again, of course. It wouldn't be the healthiest move considering how he has broken every woman that he and his petty band of beasts have gotten their hands on. So hurry up, before they come up here. Hyuga went pale, and nodded to the elder Nara. The latter barely even looked as he grabbed Sasuke's coffin. His shadow tendrils had taken the object from Hinata, and lifted it up so that he could grab a hold of it. Before Shikamaru could even blink, his uncle had disappeared. Nara Kazu, the contender for father's position. Until he lost his mind. Mother said that he had killed Junko Basan before he committed suicide by burning their whole house down. I guess he fooled us all, he grimaced. The deranged Kazu was infamous among the Nara, as well as the Yamanaka and the Akamichi. He was a living example of the dangers they all faced while cooperating in their Ino-Shika-Cho formation. Kazu had been mentally connected to his two teammates when they were killed, and it was said that something within him had died with them that day. At first, none had noticed, not even his very own sister. Only his wife had noticed, but she had never been able to warn anyone. Poor Junko had never gotten a chance. When Shikaku and the others had found her half-burnt body, they had seen the signs of his cruelty. It was obvious that the woman had been tortured for months. At that point, the stories started to circulate. How he had brutally murdered several civilians, how he had tortured a foreign shinobi for days until the poor man's mind had finally broken. It was not because the shinobi had information which Konoha needed. No, to Kazu torture was fun. But he was assumed dead, so the case had been closed. How wrong they had been, Shikamaru marveled. And when Shikamaru noticed the terrified look in the dark brown eyes of his prior opponent, he knew that his uncle had only gotten worse ever since that day, all those years ago. From the corner of his eye he saw that Hinata was quickly bandaging her own arms with the materials she had in her basic first aid kit. I need to stall the red hair until Hinata can join in. I see my long-lost uncle is working for Orochimaru too. If that lunatic Kazu is here, the other will be nearby as well. If I don't kill you before they get back, I'm dead. No, worse than dead, Hyuga glared at him. I was fine with just crippling you fools, but you heard him. I've got no option other than killing you now. Once more, Shikamaru was horrified by what he saw. The girl's hair changed from red to a dark pink. She grew 5 oddly placed horns on her head, almost as if she wore a crown. Her skin grew dark. It was as if he was seeing a demon. Kuchio's no jutsu. 3 hulking demonic beings emerged from the smoke. Each of them looked different, and each wielded a different weapon. All 3 were very large and muscular. On the left of Hyuga stood a demon with a dark green full-body suit and hair which covered its entire head and face, and the creature wielded a giant metal mace. The one behind her was shirtless, but wore dark pants. It was bald, blindfolded, and scarred, but looked menacing due to the thorn-like weapons on its arms. The one on her right was the most disturbing though, with its armless upper body covered in bandages, and it held its head in a very awkward position. They all had one thing in common though. Each demon had a purple, rope-like belt tied in an inverted bow around its waist, exactly like Hyuga and the rest of the Sound 4. Controlling the 3 behemoths with the movements of her fingers, Hyuga steered them towards the mesmerized Nara. How on earth are Hinata and I going to fight this? Tenten had barely dragged Neji back to where the others had been, when Choji and Akamaru achieved their victory over Jirobo. Ino looked at them with a worried expression, as she saw all the blood running down from Neji's shoulder. But she heard something from behind her. From the trees behind Choji, as Akamaru had already rushed towards a bleeding Kiba. A huge man jumped down, impacting the ground with a loud bang. In his wake, 7 other men followed, although these 7 barely looked like humans. Through the countless experiments Orochimaru had executed on them, they had transformed into something hideous, but undoubtedly physically strong human-shaped animals. The biggest, Amor, was the giant leader of the Sword of Skelthus, the northern tribe of warriors which had drifted off. His muscular body was covered with scars beyond counting, both from combat and experiment. His long hair was something he had lost over the years, either due to age or the numerous drugs that Orochimaru had fed him. He wielded a long and thick slab of metal, roughly in the shape of a blade. But, It was not like any blade Ino had ever seen. It was as long as a nodashi, but much more massive. It was straight, rather than curved, and the man merely used one hand to wield it. The blade ignited, and clad in flames it swung down. For a moment, the world seemed to stop turning. Time froze. Ino could not fathom it. She could not understand, did not want to understand. This could not be happening, could it? With a wet thud, Choji's head hit the ground, followed by the softer sound of his headless body slumping down. No, no, this could not be true. It couldn't be. No, no, Ino screamed. From the top of her lungs, she screamed as hard as she could. Even that could barely express the horror she felt. The anguish. The pain which seemed to tear her apart. The torment she had faced while entering the mind of the deranged Saken was nothing compared to pain she felt now. Not physically, but emotionally, she could not deal with this. Choji, Shikamaru, and she, they had practically grown up together. He couldn't be dead. She could not believe it. She did not want to believe it. But all that blood. Amor merely laughed when he saw the despairing Yamanaka faint. Kill them all, boys. But spare the women. You know the drill. You can have them once I have had my fun with them. Howling like wild animals, the men leapt forward. The prospect of death, of tearing the boys apart, it incited them just as always. Blood was all these men needed to shift into a state of frenzy. Their twisted minds had long lost their sanity. Although they were failed experiments, they were still useful puppets. They lived only to satisfy their animalistic instincts, to feed. Even when it meant that they would feast on the flesh of the living, if they were in the mood. It wouldn't be the first time that they would feast on the organs of their living victims. If they got the chance, they would rape every woman they could get their hands on, until their minds were broken, and they were reduced to the same level as these demi-humans. If they stopped screaming, they would be discarded. At that point, they would become trophies, the flesh they enjoyed eating the most, providing more skulls to adorn the walls of their hideout. They were Orochimaru's most vile creations. His was one of the only two voices they listened to. Orochimaru, with his malicious aura, was a man that even these mindless beasts respected. Whether it was instinctual or because he engineered them that way during the experiments was something that only Orochimaru himself knew. They were also loyal to their tribe leader Amor, a loyalty dating back from the times they left their original homes. Never before had they obeyed anyone else. While not particularly strong, they were savage and notoriously unpredictable. It was to the point where even Kazu and Kenta rather stayed out of their way, as they were not able to predict how these beasts would act towards them. Never had these creatures, these former humans, even paused for a second as they did the dirtiest jobs Orochimaru could give them. Never would they halt. Never would they stop, once their masters had unleashed them. Until now. All seven froze. Even Amor himself froze. Their bestial instincts cried out. They couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Something dreadful was up there, looking at them, from up in the trees. There was this smothering murderous aura, this bottomless hatred. Even if they lacked their sanity, they still had their primordial instincts. Those instincts cried out with fear. They warned them, filled them with terror, told them to flee, run for their miserable lives. They felt horror, and if there even was a chance for them to get away, that they should run as far from this place as they could, flee, escape from their past crimes. They felt fear. Because death was staring down at them. Bonus. Precious. It was definitely not easy, but Sudo finally gained some respect for the newest prank she had conjured up. Describing it as not easy was a huge understatement though. I'm dying, please, some water. Sakana mewed in the most woeful tone he could come up with. Those traps were really something else. Zero wasn't faring much better. He was covered in dirt. Not completely, of course, as the white tip of his tail is immaculate as ever. He will notice it soon. Tora chuckled. He deserves far worse. I have lost count how often he and his minions chased me. Those genin 2 legs hardly ever catch you these days though. She smirked. Sudo's training surely does its work. 2 months ago, none of you three would have been able to pull this off. But why the book? Sudo wondered. Sure, I enjoyed peeing over all the mess that man made of his apartment, but why would he be punished most of all by taking this from him? Asterisk. You helped me trail him, right? Asterisk. Suto nodded. What did he always have with him? Asterisk. Ah, I see, it is his addiction. Suto grinned. I wonder how he will react. Asterisk. I bet he will be furious. I never saw someone put up such a ridiculous amount of traps to guard his bookshelves. Asterisk. My signed super special edition of Ika Ika Pool Time. How can it be missing? Kakashi gasped right at that very moment, back in the apartment. Oh, he is furious all right, asterisk Tora roared with laughter. All 5 cats could clearly hear him crying out, no, despite the distance. I wonder when he will find the hint we planted in his asterisk. Suto was cut off when a murderous intent suddenly waved over the area. He found it, asterisk Tora hopped around like a little kitten. For a moment, she forgot about her dignity as a nobleman's cat. Shall we take a look? Asterisk. Let's, asterisk she smirked. What on earth happened here? Anko frowned. Her clothing was all over her bedroom. It was an outright mess. Despite the image most people had of her, Anko did not like a messy bedroom at all. A kitchen covered in a layer of grease was no problem. A living room looking like a dust bomb exploded was no problem either. But nobody messed with her bedroom. It was her holy place, the one place where she could be at ease, her sanctum. She had just came by to pick some clothes, as the ones she had in her room at the Uzumaki grounds were dirty, only to find chaos. Kakashi. She did not bother to look at the Jonin who just appeared in her window opening. If you created this fucking mess, I'm going to gut you. Slowly. Her sickeningly sweet smile did nothing to hide her anger. The half-masked Jonin wasn't bothered to notice. He had more pressing matters to worry about. Where is my book, Anko? Where is my precious? Why the fuck am I supposed to give a shit where your stupid books are? Anko growled. Did you create this mess? Kakashi coldly stared at the Tokubetsu Jonin. Dango sticks. Well, he had also tracked the scent that was in his room. And cat pee. Why on earth did Anko have anything to do with cats? She was a snake summoner, wasn't she? No, the argument of Dango sticks made more sense to the infuriated Jonin. There were Dango sticks in my room. You were there. Sure, Genma died and now I'm the only one with those bloody sticks. Anko snapped. Get the fuck out of here. Not before I get my Ika Ika pool time back. I want my precious. Give it to me. Not too far away. 5 cats laughed until they got out of breath. Why always that, woman, Chisama? Siro panted. The mud-covered brown cat wondered what kind of grudge a honorable Bakeneko like her could have against the snake mistress. Wait till they find the book, asterisk she smirked. You actually put it in that drawer. Suto looked at her with wide eyes. Tell me you didn't. They'd destroy the entire. What is that thing doing between my underwear? My precious. Get your hand out of my panties. Too late. They found it. Asterisk she gave the black cat a smug grin. I guess we should run away now. And fast. Asterisk. Chapter 56. Old Kin. Crimson eyes watched, slit, like those of an animal. They glared at the creatures that dared to attack his friends, who had killed one of his friends. Clad in a dark green short shirt kimono and matching pants, with an oddly modeled flak jacket on top, he stood there and struggled to contain his anger. Unlike the usual flak jackets, which had several pockets in front, the blonde boy had a custom-made flak jacket. Underneath it, he wore a utility belt with multiple scrolls in watertight casings. Where Amor and his minions could not see, the boy had the swirling symbol of his clan on his back, with matching ones sewn on his shoulders displaying his clan, his pride. He was Uzumaki Naruto. He had rushed forward, feeling several vile chakra signatures approach. He had hoped to arrive in time to interfere with whomever these dark emotions belonged to. Darker and less humane than Naruto had ever sensed before. Even Orochimaru or Gaara, when he had been deranged, had not felt this vile. So, he had tapped deeper into his chakra, and boosted his speed as much as he could only to arrive in time to see Choji, the kind Choji, fall. In their times at the academy, only Shikamaru and Choji had seemed to interact with Naruto without the reluctance which practically everyone else showed. Aside from Hinata, Only those two boys had not looked at him with disgust. Even if he had preferred solitude at the time, he had seen both the Akamiki and the Nara as a sort of friend. Now this big disfigured giant with his flaming sword had ended the life of the kindhearted, rotund Choji. Even though Naruto's seal had been restored, the rage that boiled inside him nevertheless made the Kyuubi respond. It did not affect him as it used to, but the chakra flowed through him, filling him with strength, making him radiate the Kyuubi's hatred. The smothering murderous aura that he radiated had paralyzed everyone. Even Karen, being woken from her catatonic state by the horrified screams of Ino, trembled in fear as she looked up towards her brother. She blinked when Naruto suddenly vanished. But with a spray of blood, he reappeared. Only a short distance from her, she saw the man fall. Only now did she realize how close one of those 7 underlings had been to her. Naruto's futon, Rinkuden drilling air bullet, had left a huge hole in the man's chest. Naruto. Nichan, are you okay? His voice was grim, and anger was clearly heard, but he was still sane. He had not been consumed by the Kyuubi, as she had seen him before. He did not speak with its voice. She could feel it was still her brother. Naruto was furious. How could this be happening? Why would? This was the logical consequence of child soldiers meeting their adult counterparts, wasn't it? It disgusted Naruto to think that this was their life, and filled him with a worry that made him want to rush out into the forests. Because, even while he wanted to exterminate every monster Orochimaru sent for them, he was more worried about those who were not at the scene right now. The others of his group would soon arrive, and were capable of easily disposing of this scum. My sister and friends will be safe. No, with them secure, I have to find and protect the other people who were precious to me. His friends, his family, well, he did not know how to think about Hinata anymore. Seeing Choji tore his heart apart. How could this happen to them? Why? Why was their world like this? I am, Kiba-kun, I screwed up, Kiba grumbled weakly. But I'll be fine. Stop worrying, Karen, okay. Ignoring the whining pup, Naruto just stared at Kiba's injuries for a moment. Nichan, take Kiba back to the village. Bachan will fix him. But you should not have run off like that, Naruto, a gravelly voice interrupted her. I'm sorry Gaara, but I felt something was off. Well, you weren't going here on your own, you know, Temari panted. She did not have Jonin-level stamina like Anko or Rado, nor was she a Jinchuriki with a virtually endless supply of energy like Naruto or Gaara. Even that bloody cat of yours kept nagging that I should go faster. How could you expect that oh, damn, she suddenly gasped when she saw Choji's corpse. Damn it. I told you something was wrong, four-tail two-leg, said Cat added sadly. Aw fuck, so we were still too late, Anko grimaced. Poor kid. Naruto ignored them all. He saw Neji approach, supported by Tenten, but did not see Neji's cousin. Neji was covered with his own blood. Why wasn't Hinata with him? He was supposed to watch her. Nichan, where is Hinata? She and Shikamaru went after the fourth and last of the Oto Nin who took Sasuke away, Kiba answered, considering how the stressed-out Uzumaki could barely stammer a reply. Naruto being made like this didn't exactly help her either. You guys split up. Naruto mumbled in disbelief. Against Orochimaru's elites. I'll take you to her. Two-leg, she spoke up. But I think we should hurry. The huge painted two-leg didn't come here on his own. Then I'll leave these idiots to you guys, Naruto said, looking at the others. Wipe them out. Wait a moment, two-leg, she hesitated. Scarface two-leg, you should know that I was the one who left huge eyebrow two-leg's weird clothes in Crazy Snake's two-leg's bedroom. I think you deserve to know. I tried to tell you before, but, well, after what I did earlier it isn't surprising you tried to stay away from me, she confessed. She then jumped onto Naruto's shoulder, before the baffled Rado could react. Her long tail wrapped around Naruto so that she would not lose her footing, and jumped into the tree line. Not so fast, Jirobo growled. While barely able to stand, as he was almost out of chakra, he launched himself at Naruto. The Uzumaki felt how the larger boy grabbed him by his wrist, and sensed a strange pull at his chakra. I'm almost out of chakra, and you have so much of it, The large orange-haired boy laughed, starting to greedily absorb Naruto's chakra. So be a good little moron and let me drain you until. Splash. I don't have time to waste on a worthless idiot like you, Naruto said coldly as he pulled his hand out of Jirobo's chest. Coughing up blood, Jirobo looked in disbelief as Naruto tore the flesh out of his body. That is for Kiba, Naruto hissed. And this for Choji. Jirobo whimpered when Naruto put a hand against his forehead. Josei no Fuin, immolation seal. It was barely more than a whisper to Jirobo's ears, but it was the last thing he would ever hear. Jirobo would never avenge the death of his parents, nor would he ever find out what happened to his sister. Know for sure if she had died that fateful day. The ones who ruined his village would never be punished, not by him. His painful life had ended. The immolation seal ignited, and his head went up in flames. The hand which held Naruto's wrist lost its power, and the body fell aside, but Naruto did not waste another look on his fallen adversary. Perhaps if Jirobo had not been altered so much by Orochimaru's experiments, Naruto would have realized that Jirobo's chakra was oddly familiar. Perhaps if his chakra hadn't been deformed this much, perhaps if his body had not been mutated to such an extent, perhaps Naruto or Karen would have realized who he was. But it was too late for those things now. Orochimaru had corrupted him too much. Bonds were not defined by blood. Jirobo was nothing more than another fallen opponent. The seal Naruto applied would not stop until Jirobo was burnt to ashes anyway, even if Naruto had realized. Right now, Uzumaki Naruto had only one concern: Hyuga Hinata. Was she okay? Was she still alive? Seeing Choji's corpse had terrified him. He had seen many corpses, but never of his friends, not when slain in battle, at least. His darkest fear was that Hinata would lie on the ground like that, in a puddle of her own blood. Was this the life their world promoted, with the glorification of missions for the sake of their villages, of sacrifices they had to make for the greater good, that resulted in corpses of children? Was this what Konoha defined as a hero? With bitterness and disgust, Naruto for the first time came to understand why Jiraiya had such an aversion to common rules of the shinobi world, why he wanted to end this cycle of hatred, he perceived. Because this pain, this insanity, Naruto could not bear to see it again, never again. Now that he was freed from the Kyuubi's hatred, he finally saw the insanity of his world. Part of his mind even considered whether it was mankind which had driven the Kyuubi into becoming the mass of hatred it now was, rather than it always having been one. First Shino, now Choji, when was this going to end? Rushing off without a word to the others, Naruto headed in the direction she pointed out to him. He did not notice the odd mood the Bakeneko was in. Nor would he have realized that despite the removal of the Kyuubi's influence, he still was capable of ruthlessly killing enemies. Sure, the demon amplified those emotions, silencing his conscience, but it was not the only trigger for his anger. Naruto was nowhere near the wrathful person he was before Hiruzen mended the seal. Observing the 7 remaining assailants, as well as the state of the other rookies, Gaara turned to his sister. Temari, help the others. They all have to get back to Konohagakure. Gaara. Temari never ceased to be surprised by how much her little brother had changed in this short time. He suddenly acted like a leader, something which he had never really done before. Rado-san, Anko-san, can I ask you to deal with this group? What about you, kiddo? Anko still had that peculiar frown on her face. I'll follow Naruto, Gaara said, before vanishing in a sandy shunshin. You can sense the hatred in others, but not in yourself, can you, Naruto? Whenever Hinata is involved, you get reckless. Why? He could not find an answer. Although, Temari risked the outcome of the entire invasion for my sake. She was willing to put aside the interests of the village, just for me. She could have been branded a traitor, had Suna come to understand her role in the failure of the invasion. And Konoha would not be safe for her either. What makes them so reckless? The answer was, in his case, literally branded on his face, and still he did not understand. Love. It was so important to people, yet so foreign to Gaara. Anko looked at Rado, and shrugged. I guess the both of them lost their bloodlust after their seals were mended. What a pity, they were much more entertaining before. Though I guess they'll still be haunted by their past reputations, she spoke, the latter comment half about herself, half about the two young Jinchuriki. You did see what Naruto just did you? Rado frowned, pointing at the smoldering remains of Jirobo. Sticking out her tongue to mock Rado, Anko threw him a coin. What are you planning now, you crazy woman? Gay, he doesn't know what to say now, so he returns to acting towards me like he did before he thought that I was a slut. Ah well, I'd rather take his jibes than deal with the silent treatment any longer, Anko smirked. Heads, I get the big guy and you deal with his minions. Tails, you get him and I'll deal with the trash. For once, she gambled that the daimyo's ugly old mug would show up. This isn't a joke. He is a swordsman, so I'll deal with him. The others are unarmed, probably too stupid to know how to distinguish the blunt and sharp ends of a kunai, Rado sighed. So why do you have to gamble about it? Hey, it's not like everything is a game to me, and I meant to tell you that. That cat-planted guy's suit, I already knew. Rado remained focused on their enemies, though he felt some satisfaction when Anko pouted. Why didn't you say so before? Why did you keep up the silent treatment? I wanted to tell you before, but Anko was rudely interrupted when Amor's blade crashed into the ground where she just stood. Hey, the big one picked me. Before she could utter that she won the toss, however, Rado used his Shunshin no Jutsu to move in front of her. His black blade, the Kokuto, blocked Amor's massive blade with no visible effort. Hey, he's my prey. You two morons should not underestimate me this much, Amor growled. Though I love it how you show off those titties. Men, grab her and those little girls, kill the rest. 6 pairs of eyes, still numbed by fear, turned to him. Oi, the one with the monster chakra is gone, so snap out of it, you bunch of retards. Let's go catch some pussy. Tamari-san, get the injured out of here, Rado ordered. Doden. Domu. Earth Spear. The wind was knocked out of Amor's lungs when the earth-clad fist of Rado slammed in his chest. Meanwhile, Anko just sighed in disappointment. He hogs all the fun, and I am left with these ugly idiots. Ah well, at least there are 6 of them. And I kinda owe him after I blackmailed him, so I can't even get mad at him. Hey, you guys are Orochimaru's test subjects, aren't you? Seeing her as their main threat, 2 of the 6 lashed out at her. This was slightly pointless though. Kawarimi no Jutsu was all it took for Anko to outsmart the mindless grunts. The 2 crushed a poor wooden log, while Anko reappeared behind another of the brutes. 4 kunai flew, and hit their intended targets. Kaden. Ruka no Jutsu, fire release. Dragon fire technique, 4 dragon-like fiery projectiles passed through the wire which was connected to each of the 4 kunai. Howling, growling, shouting, and eventually crying, 4 of the brutes were turned to ashes. Anko knew all too well that Orochimaru would create this type of foot soldier as something hard to stop using regular means, so she did things thoroughly. Really, I usually capture my prey and ask them a few questions. It is always fun to break them to the point where they will answer any question I ask them, Anko smirked. But you two are brainless. Interrogation would be a waste of time. I can't break you any further than that bastard already did. Besides, Rado-kun just pissed me off. Keeping silent, even if he knew, for 4 freaking days, she muttered. 1 snake and 1 tiger hand seal later, Anko rushed forward. Sanejishu, hidden shadow snake hands, Anko found it rather fitting to murder her former sensei's trash with his own jutsu. Snakes came out of the left sleeve of her overcoat, leaving a multitude of bites in the nearest of the 2. While he and his brethren were designed to resist virtually anything, the combination of deadly poisons was just too much. To be sure, Anko added a kunai to his throat. However, the watching genin did not know whether the woman did it to make sure he was dead, or for aesthetic reasons. After all, they all knew that Anko held weird opinions on what was beauty, and after the Chunin exams they all knew about her literal taste for blood. Doubtless the last of the beast-like warriors would not realize any of this. Understanding that the Tokubetsu Jonin was too dangerous as an opponent, he turned towards Karen, who was nearest to him. Whether it were the countless senbon that Anko tossed, the kunai Kiba flung at his throat, or the 2 last kunai with explosive tags which Karen threw, Karen did not know what killed the creature. Its red eyes rolled up, and his black painted body slumped down. Well, apart from his right arm, as it was blasted to the other end of the clearing. Karen's tags were not as effective as Tenten's, but they surely did the job. Shell-shocked by the grisly sight, it would take Karen months before she would come to understand how Anko could merely shrug when looking at the scattered remains of their fallen adversary. The Tokubetsu Jonin, however, had other things to worry about. She knew Naruto left this battle to them, as he prioritized Hinata's well-being. But she had clearly felt his desire to avenge Choji. Looking at her fellow Tokubetsu Jonin, she saw Rado would be capable enough to handle the big guy. Even though many people assumed Tokubetsu Jonin were inferior to actual Jonin, Anko knew better. She was denied the rank because of the cursed seal Orochimaru had left on her. The examiners had deemed it too dangerous to entrust someone carrying that burden with such great responsibilities. But in terms of fighting abilities, Anko knew better than most that there were only few in Konoha who were capable of beating her. Skill mattered little though while the opinions were against her. As for Namiyashi Rado, the reasons for not being promoted to Jonin were completely different. He had been given the opportunity, but had instead turned the promotion down. He and Genma had both chosen the position in the Hokage Guard platoon, the Goei Shotai. The position would conflict with the demands placed on a Jonin. Long-term missions, which comprised the bulk of A or S-ranked missions, could not be taken, as their duties as bodyguard took precedence. As bodyguards, they could also not act as military captains, which Jonin did under normal circumstances. They had to stick to the Hokage, whose safety was necessarily their singular objective. But did his lower rank fool anyone in Konoha? No. When it came to assassination, there wasn't anyone in Konoha who would boast to be better at it than Namiyashi Rado. Just as it is with his sake, Anko smiled. So, Anko turned her attention to the rookies. Oi, Blondie, is that Hyuga fit for travel? I've bandaged him as best I could, Tamari replied, wiping Neji's blood from her hands. Tenten had helped, but Tenten did not have as much medical knowledge as the kunoichi from Sunagaku. Tenten can carry him home. I'll take that green-clad kid. Ino should be able to move on her own, even though her chakra is completely scrambled. She won't be able to fight, nor will she be able to jump through trees the usual way, but she can run. Ino heard none of it. She was just sitting there, staring at Choji's corpse. Only when Karen laid a scroll on top of him, did the Yamanaka turn her gaze away from him. I'll seal Choji-san in my scroll. We can't leave him here, we need to take him home, so that we can bury him properly. Karen swallowed away her tears. Good thinking, Anko smiled. The timid girl actually has the balls to get close to her friend's corpse. I've seen a lot of genin who would back off from this, when they saw a friend die for the first time. Kerr-chan has some interesting students indeed. Perhaps I shouldn't instantly fail my candidates the next time they try to put a genin team on my watch. I could give them a fair test. The whole sensei thing seems to be more fun than I expected. I'll give you some hemostatic drugs to stop the bleeding. Anko turned to Kiba. Your girlfriend can carry you back home. What? Karen isn't. She's not. I did not. Shut it. I saw how quickly you drew that kunai, even in your wounded condition. Don't try to lie to Anko-Nisan. You are even crazier than Hannah, aren't you? Yup. The snake mistress smiled widely. If she had listened to the completely out-of-place discussion, Karen perhaps could have felt happiness. Kiba being highly embarrassed by Anko's teasing was, after all, the most emotional response that Kiba had ever given to her less than subtle show of emotions. In fact, she didn't know how to hide how she felt. It was simply because no one ever cared about how she felt, added to the fact that she had not been happy like this for most of her life. She went from a refugee to an orphan, from an orphan to a piece of cattle bought for the children she could bear, and then this freedom, this happiness came along. But as much as that meant to her, seeing the gentle boy who fought side by side with her, dead on the ground, had paralyzed her mind. Those stupid dreams or memories or whatever they were, I froze. I saw Kiba-kun bleed, and I just froze. If only I had been able to help him. If I had known medical ninjutsu like Tsunade-sama or Shizune-san, I could have patched up Kiba-kun and we could have aided Choji. If only I were as skilled as they are. If I was as skilled as Shizune-Nisan, I could have beaten the orange guy by myself. If I If I had been a medic, Karen solemnly looked at the scroll which now contained both Choji's body and his head. He still looked so surprised, as if he didn't even notice it. I don't think he felt anything, not that it is much of a comfort, but at least he did not suffer. Looking down at her trembling hands, Karen bit her bottom lip and forced herself not to burst out in tears. She did not want to be weak any longer. She hated her uselessness. She would never whine again, no matter how hard Kurenai made her train. In fact, she intended to ask Shizune for additional training. That young woman was one of the few people whom she looked up to, yet trusted at the same time. Tsunade was more powerful, that was a given, but her behavior was, well, Karen did not think the Sennin would make a very good teacher. Besides, she wanted to be a healer. She did not need that inhuman strength. When it came to combat, Karen would follow her brother. Perhaps she would never be as skilled as Naruto when it came to Fuinjutsu, but they were jutsu that belonged to her clan. So, she would master them, or die trying. Hesitantly, Karen reached down and picked up Choji's scroll. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'll get stronger. I promise. I'm sorry. Damn it. Annoyingly troublesome woman, why can't you just give up, like a sensible person would? Shikamaru grumbled. Recall those hulking freaks, and surrender. You seem to be pretty clever, but that does not matter much, Hyuga chuckled. With the chakra I have at my disposal, it is only a matter of time before I break your hold. Though, I must admit that your little deceit was very cunning. Perhaps not everyone in Konoha was trash. Why are the pretty ones always the most troublesome? Shikamaru sighed in exasperation. What? Shut up, you stupid piece of trash. Seeing her flustered state, Shikamaru smirked. She's skilled, but her pride and overly emotional behavior make her rather easy to bait. Good. I need to buy some time before Hinata is finished with those summons. Ah well, whatever distracts her goes, and she seems to drag power from her anger. I was lucky that I still had enough chakra to complete the binding. Had Hinata not been here, I would have been forced to fight those giant summons. But I will not be able to keep it up that much longer. I hope Hinata manages to beat them soon. Not able to pay any attention to Shikamaru's fight, Hinata was busy evading attacks like her life depended on it. Which, well, it kind of did. The Doki were not summoned to this place to drink a cup of tea with her, after all. Besides, Hinata had no Ryokucha, green tea, with her, so they would have gone mad anyway. The Doki were much faster than Hinata had initially assumed. The hulking forms made it obvious that they were monstrously strong, but their speed, Hinata needed every bit of training she ever received to just keep dodging all three of them. Perhaps, if she had not been injured, the fight would have gone easier, but unfortunately that renegade Nara had pierced her arms in several places with his shadow tendrils. But Suzaku had already taught her a few useful tricks. Even with her bandaged arms, Hinata was able to hit her opponents every now and then, simply because the demons lost track of her. I know I have a long way to go, but Suzaku-sama was right. Hiding my chakra signature in battle makes it more difficult for opponents to keep track of me. I never knew that everyone had, in even the slightest way, the ability to sense another's chakra. I don't know what she meant by saying that chakra was meant to connect, though. But at the speed with which we do battle, not being able to sense the opponent is a huge weakness. After all, only the Sharingan seems to be fast enough for an Uchiha to purely rely on eyesight. Too bad I can only do this for short moments. Still, the ability Suzaku was teaching her was very useful. Far more useful than Hinata had initially thought. Suppressing my own chakra isn't as difficult as this, but to hide completely I have to use her chakra. At least, what Suzaku-sama gave me seems to be more like a sliver of her own chakra. Only, I can only use it when not using any of my own. It is odd that she is able to do something like that. And how does the source of chakra refill every time? It can't be gathering chakra from the thin air itself, can it? Of course, not using her own chakra at all was like stopping to breathe. She could only do it in short bursts. But those bursts did their work, even in her wounded condition. The punctures that littered her arms were severely inhibiting her in close combat. She simply lacked the power to strike properly. However, it certainly was no disadvantage that Hyuga was currently unable to control the trio of ogres. Without the now pink-haired Kunoichi steering them, the Doki were running wild. Had they been able to fight coordinatedly? Now, Hinata grit her teeth as she made a short burst of movement. For a second, the club-wielding ogre lost track of her. Only when Hinata showed up right next to him, the creature noticed her. But her chakra-clad palm had already hit its head when it started to swing the club at her. In the cloud of smoke, Hinata allowed herself to smile for a moment. I did it. Now, I need to get past the two remaining giants quickly, and help Shikamaru-san before he runs out of chakra to keep a hold of her. I think getting past them is more sensible than beating them. I can do it, now that there are only two left. I don't think I would have enough chakra to fight these monsters and take her down. Her little moment of celebration was cut short, however, when something grabbed hold of her. Although she squirmed to escape, it held her too firmly for her to break free, and the pressure on her wounded arms made her nauseous from the pain. Unlike Anko, Namiyashi Rado was not the kind of person to play around with his opponents. With a screeching sound, Rado drew his black blade. His blade, Kokuto, was covered in a mixture of lethal poisons. It fitted Rado's preferred way of fighting, silent and efficient. One strike to finish an opponent. Although none of that mattered right now. While he would rather strike from the shadows, this was not that sort of fight. So he instead chose for intimidation. Yet, with all the finesse the scarred man showed, his hulking, and even more scarred, opponent was a brute in the truest meaning of the word. The situation had some irony, as the man with the black painted body was facing a man with a black sword, but Rado didn't care much. His nose twitched. Wow, that man smells. Is it body paint, or is he just black because he did not take a bath in the last decade? Impassively, Amor noted how the scantily clad woman dispatched four of his men. These were the last remnants of his tribe, but even Amor knew that the men had died a long time ago. As Kenta had once promised him, Amor had received power from Orochimaru. Over and over, the Sannin had modified his body, though he had been careful to keep Amor's mind intact. Unlike his tribesmen, who had all fallen, lower than any animal on the surface of the earth for the sake of perfecting the cursed seal. Once, the black paint had been a proud symbol of his tribe. It showed that he was the leader of the second strongest group of warriors his remote island knew. But these days the black paint just hid the majority of his scars. He had lost his men, he had lost his hair, both things he had held a lot of pride in, but in return he had gotten powerful. Kenta shall bleed for what he did. Because of his deception, my men suffered a fate worse than even a captured narwhal. That fucking bastard, Orochimaru-sama offered me more power if we succeeded in the mission. After today, I will get my vengeance. After I kill that bastard, I'll return to the north once again. The entire island will be mine. Even the Hirthaganatos will be powerless in front of me. But first I gotta kill this puny tree-hugging maggot. I don't know who or what those kids were, but I'm glad they left. Amor unveiled his dirty teeth. Their chakra was unnerving to say the least. But with only you two, it will all be far too easy. So even you and your beasts have enough sense to fear Naruto, Rado smiled calmly. What, are you loyal to a little kid? Was he the one who gave you that ugly scar? All my life, people have made fun of my scar, Rado sighed. But never have I seen someone as ugly as you comment about it. Hell, even Ibiki is a beauty compared to you. Scratching his chin, Amor leaned heavily on his long sword. Ugly. I bet that big-titted whore over there won't mind that once I ram my cock up her. With a loud clang, Amor deflected the black blade. Sure, he had gotten a scratch on his chest, but what did it matter? What, is she your woman? Odd, I expected a woman dressed like her would prefer someone with a bigger sword. The tall man chuckled. I doubt Anko-san would even look at something as filthy as you. Rado shook his head. He reprimanded himself for losing his calm like that, even if it had only been a moment. And after all she went through after your boss discarded her, she deserves better than either of us can offer. He ignored his opponent's last remark, even though the innuendo wasn't lost on Rado. Channeling his chakra, Amor ignited his blade once again. Whatever. I killed that little piglet, and now you will be next, little man. Uncaring about any injury he might receive, Amor rushed forward. Swinging his blade wildly, He seemed to have a total disregard for any physical harm Rado might cause him. But wounding him was what Rado did. Now littered with wounds, Amor just laughed at the smaller man. Do you think I even feel those puny scratches? Orochimaru-sama made me immune to pain. I won't stop fighting, ever. Who cares? Rado shrugged. I don't need you to feel pain. Though, I must admit that it is taking much longer than usual before the poison kicks in. I suppose it makes sense that that traitor would give his most trusted minions a large resistance to poisons. Amor's flaming sword came down, and Rado berated himself for wasting time on talking. Even if the man was a rather awkward swordsman compared to a shinobi like Rado, Amor did have a monstrous amount of physical power. Instinct kicked in, and his Kokudo caught Amor's massive blade. But with so much power behind that single swing, Rado was forced down to his knees. Poison. Amor laughed at it. Only cowards fight with poison. A brave warrior like me would never fall due to some cowardly tactic like. We are shinobi, you idiot, Rado mumbled from behind Amor. A black dagger pierced the giant's chest. We are supposed to do our job, regardless of how we win our fights. Whatever we need to do, we do it for the sake of our mission. What? Kawarimi no Jutsu, body replacement technique. Even the greenest of genin is supposed to know that little trick. But morons like you, who only can swing their blades, who only believe in brute strength, morons like you would fall for such a simple trick as this. Rado pulled his blade out of the painted man's chest, and jumped back. You may have physical strength and speed near the level of a jonin, but your lack of real skills is what broke you up. But I commend you for your endurance. I haven't taken out that dagger in years. In his anger, Amor swung his blade at the evasive Rado. Why? Why is my blade so heavy? Why am I so damn slow? The poison on that dagger is expensive, but it works extremely well. And with such a deep wound, it already entered your lungs. Rado waited patiently, just one step out of Amor's reach. Of course, I could have decapitated you just now, but that would not be right. People like you, who treat women like garbage, should die slowly. And for what you did to Choji-san, you deserve to suffer even more. Coward. In a dash, Rado's blade cut through Amor's pants. And while the monstrous swordsman could not feel any pain, Amor still roared in horror, in anger. In frustration, powerless as he was, the poison was starting to spread through his veins. He roared because he realized what Rado had just cut off. And after what you previously said, it seems right that you lose that particular appendage before your death as well. Nothing disgusts me more than rapists. The Tokubetsu Jonin, even though he was as calm and collected as ever, had a voice as cold as ice. Every warrior should abide by a code of honor. You are just trash, and you will die as such. You don't deserve to die as a man. Blood ran from his nose, and Amor slowly collapsed. His mighty legs lost their power. His arms were incapable of holding his blade any longer. He had been beaten and he knew it. He did not need to see the black sword swinging towards his throat to know what his fate would be. Amor's final grace was that his inability to feel pain also meant that he never felt the cold steel enter his flesh to separate head from torso. I think Naruto-san will appreciate that his friend was avenged, Rado mumbled to himself after sealing away the corpses of Amor and the two beast-like subordinates who weren't completely burnt to ashes. After all, who knew what kinds of foul secrets these bodies could contain? Now, should I follow Anko-san and escort the genin, or should I track down Naruto and Gaara-san? The others are fine, a voice startled him. Follow me. Her arms were covered in blood-soaked bandages. The fair skin on her face featured a large bruise. The anger he felt nearly made him break his jutsu. The Kakusa no Fuin, stealth seal, had always been a jutsu that was highly sensitive to his chakra control. Naruto knew that if he got too angry, the Kyuubi would push its chakra into his system. Such an act which would disrupt the seal and remove his element of surprise. Despite her injuries, Hinata still managed to take down one of the three ogres. Naruto couldn't help but feel proud. You doubted your abilities for so long, but even you should acknowledge that you have grown considerably. Che, if only those rotten bastards at the clan would see it. But as long as you are a threat to their wealth, they will remain blind to your martial prowess, I'm afraid. And if Neji was right and your grandfather really is involved, perhaps it was stupid not to kill Hideo. Even if he is directly related to Hinata, it does not mean he would care more about her than about his own greed. Naruto grimaced as he realized how foolish he had been. It had always been so easy for him to sense the negative emotions in others that he always failed to comprehend the positive ones. Blood bonds, a thing he always desired to have, had been one of the things he never really understood. Why did Hiashi treat Hinata in such a way, even when she was his daughter? Why did Hideo try to thwart Hinata at every turn, even when she was his eldest granddaughter? Wasn't family supposed to protect each other? Two-leg. I know, but I am waiting for the right moment to strike. You just don't want to interrupt her fight. The cat saw through his partial lie. In all his years at the orphanage, he had believed that family was meant to protect each other. Parents should love their children. But in reality, he had seen many parents who cared more about themselves than about their children. Then again, if parents really gave a damn, would they send their children off to fight their battles for them? Kakashi said he was 6 when he made it to Chunin. What kind of insane society would send 6-year-olds off to a Chunin exam? He wondered, as he could see the relief on Hinata's face. Ah well, what could I expect from a village that elects a Hokage who seals a demon within his son? Ever since he had started to watch her fight, Naruto had thought to let her win it on her own. He believed that it would be good for her self-confidence. He believed she could do it. But in her moment of carelessness, the ogre that had those odd thorn-like weapons wrapped to its arms had appeared behind her. In truth, Naruto had forgotten that Sasuke was missing. He had just gone out of the village to retrieve his friends, but was mostly indifferent to the Uchiha. Karen and Kiba had been relatively healthy, but after seeing what happened to Choji, seeing how he died had filled Naruto with horror. The death of Haruki had hurt him a lot, even though Naruto had never told him, and he would regret that for the rest of his life. Haruki had been like a father to Naruto. Similarly, Hiruzen had been much like a grandfather. But both Haruki and Hiruzen had been gravely ill. Their deaths, though they heavily affected Naruto, were somewhat natural, understandable. They were already dying. They were prepared for it, made peace with it. But Choji had been slain in battle. Naruto knew it was the reality shinobi had to face. He had probably seen more death than any of the other rookies, except for Sasuke, who had witnessed his clan's massacre, of course. But to see a friend die, it had been something new for Naruto, something frightening. He had always had that strange naive kind of confidence that his friends would be okay, no matter what. It was like some sort of higher power would protect them, simply because they were his friends. But he was wrong. Like any other, they too could perish. So Naruto had chased down Hinata. He had moved so fast that poor Chi had been forced to extend her nails in order for her not to fall off. As fast as he could, Naruto had tracked Hinata down, and after his initial anger at seeing her injuries had died down a little, he had been relieved. He was so very much relieved that it frightened him. If Hinata died, even the very thought frightens me. Why? It isn't rational at all. Somewhere deep down, behind the reinforced barricades, Naruto had sensed the Kyuubi's amusement. It would seem that Fuzzball has finally stopped sulking. Well, after Jisun undid a decade of the fox's hard work, I can understand its frustration. But all that mattered little to Naruto now. When the ogre's hand closed around Hinata, and her efforts to break free were fruitless, Naruto unleashed his own rage. It would be foolish to let Hinata suffer, only if it meant that she would gain more confidence. She had already beaten one of them, in spite of her wounded condition. Had she been able to freely move her arms, Naruto was certain that she could have dispelled those monsters on her own. You help Shikamaru while I dispose of these ugly things. Why yes. Had Naruto not been worried about Hinata, he would have been surprised by the hesitant tone of Chi's reply, not to mention how quiet she had become. Before the bandaged Doki could attack Hinata, Naruto had popped up behind the one who held her. The brutes had no time to react to his sudden appearance, though, as Naruto already slammed his palm against the Doki's forehead. With its eyes wrapped, it had never seen Naruto. Only a short surprise growl sounded, before it roared out in pain. Josei no Fuin, immolation seal, Naruto said to a very surprised Hinata. With wide eyes, she looked at Naruto, as if she barely believed if he was really there. Naruto-kun. Hinata. Is that really, Naruto-kun? Last time I checked I was. Yes, Naruto frowned. He completely ignored the howling monster behind him. He was far too relieved to see her alive to be worried about that creature. However, the creature did have the audacity to interrupt him. Holding her in his arms, princess style, Naruto jumped back to avoid the charge of the bandaged doki. Annoyed, he looked at his clone, who just watched him dumbly. I thought you were supposed to take care of him. Is she okay? Of course she isn't, you moron. Can't you see the blood? Now go and kill that big-ass freak show. Aye boss, the clone saluted. Damn moronic clones, I swear, it has to be the Kyuubi's chakra that messes with their brains, Naruto grumbled. Dumbasses. Don't you know I am you, and you are me? The clone shouted back. You are insulting yourself, idiot. Yes, the clone had the same kind of accurate hearing as the original himself. And, well, the clone didn't realize he was insulting himself either. Despite the entire situation, despite her pain, Hinata could not resist giggling at seeing Naruto's frustration with his own clone. At least, she giggled until she saw the worried look in his eyes. Are you okay? No broken bones. How are your arms? And, I'll be fine. Hinata stopped him mid-rant. Please, help Shikamaru-san, he is fighting the one who summoned these demons. She will help him. All first. See, can't you let me down now? Hinata asked shyly, while blushing. I'll be fine, so we should help Shikamaru-san and she together. Their opponent is strong. Okay, Naruto answered a bit sheepishly. He had completely forgotten that he held Hinata like that. How strong is he? The sound nin. She is strong. Shikamaru held her down, but he can't hold her for that much longer. Ah well, it won't be much of a problem now, will it? Naruto looked up. You really have a bad habit of rushing off on your own. Gaara remained calm, yet Naruto could hear some annoyance. Gaara was not much slower than he was, but it had probably dismayed him a bit to have to track down his fellow Jinchuriki after the blonde had disappeared from Gaara's sight. Unnoticed by Naruto, Gaara slipped some of his chakra-infused sand in his pockets. Next time, tracking Naruto would not take this much time and effort. Sorry, Naruto chuckled sheepishly. But after Choji. I know, Gaara sighed. Where is the Uchiha? What happened to Choji-san? Hinata asks, but she got scared when she saw Naruto's expression change. A heavily sweating Shikamaru nearly lost his grasp on Hyuga when she startled him. He became more freaked out by her silent attitude. Oi, if you are here, does it mean Naruto is here as well? He is. Are you okay? How are the others? Quote. Troublesome creature, Shikamaru grumbled. Always talking, and when I ask something you refuse to talk. Silence is better sometimes. Two-leg, she sighed. How long can you hold her? Not much longer. Hell, if I had been worn down before this even started, she would have broken free long ago. So Naruto better hurry. Not everyone is as lazy as you are, a most welcome voice sounded. You took your sweet time, Shikamaru smiled weakly. Damn it Naruto, you're looking like that as well. What got into? Something went wrong, didn't it? Hinata, where is that Sasuke-tem? I don't see that horn girl holding him. Naruto had abruptly changed the subject. My uncle took him away. The young Nara was annoyed at being ignored. Though, the harsh tone in Naruto's voice surprised him. Wasn't his seal strengthened? He wondered. Your NNCLE. Yeah, my uncle whom we all thought had died, but who actually turned traitor, Shikamaru sighed. Apparently, he turned crazy after his team died, and decided it was more amusing to serve Orochimaru. Naruto was at a loss for words at that statement. He paled, knowing what news he still had to tell Shikamaru. He went in that direction, Shikamaru pointed, when Gaara looked at him and Naruto remained silent. Though, he misunderstood why Gaara was looking at him like that. I suppose I will track him down, Gaara turned to Naruto. They exchanged looks, and the unspoken conversation that followed came down to one conclusion: not now. Now was not the time to tell Shikamaru about Choji's death. Neither Naruto nor Gaara knew how to tell him, and having him freak out in the middle of a battlefield was not something Naruto wanted. Okay, I'll take care of business here, I'll catch up to you soon. You stupid shitheads don't think you can face Kazoo all by yourself, do you? Hyuga smirked. You must have a death wish. And what is this about? Catching up soon. Are you as retarded as you look, blondie? Gaara shrugged, and simply left in his sandy version of the Shunshin no Jutsu. Just release her, Shikamaru, Naruto said to the exhausted Nara. But it won't make much of a difference, whether she can move or not. She is dead. She and her miserable friends will all die. Shikamaru was slightly shocked at the pure and unrefined hatred that resounded in Naruto's voice. Even Hinata took a step back. So, he obeyed. He had seen Naruto fight Gaara, so even though the girl's abilities worried him, he had no doubt in his mind that Naruto would win. When her restraints vanished, Hyuga did not waste any time. Moving her flute to her lips, she played the deathly melody which ensnared her opponents. To her relief, she saw Hinata and Shikamaru buckle over when they experienced the horrible torment within her illusions. I got you. Kai. Hyuga frowned when she saw a talking cat. But the creature broke the illusions which held the two. Her last opponent, however, the blonde boy clad in green, just looked at the girl with the dark blue hair. I was so relieved to see her alive, I would nearly forget my oath, the blonde mumbled. A dense, massive, and ominous chakra began to radiate from him. Hyuga shuddered when she noticed his crimson eyes, with the slit pupils of an animal. You're that little piece of shit who managed to beat that demon from Suna. The reddish-pink-haired girl exclaimed. Gaara is not a demon, Naruto snarled. You insult my friends, kidnap that sorry piece of crap of an Uchiha, and you injure Hinata, I've had enough. Shikamaru stepped towards Naruto, but was halted by Hinata. Don't. Naruto-kun is still in control. He is just very angry, she said somberly. Gaara and Naruto had told her. She knew what enraged Naruto to this degree, but she didn't know how to break it to Shikamaru. How could she tell him his best friend had died? But the Kyuubi. Fluffy can't do a thing now that the seal is fixed, Naruto cut them off. Get them back to Konoha. I'll kill this idiot and then track down Gaara on my own. Two-leg, you shouldn't. Mateki. Mugen Onsa, demonic flute. Phantom sound chains. No longer holding anything back, Hyuga put in all her chakra in an effort to capture Naruto. The other two won't be a problem, and the cat summon arrived with him. So if I beat him, the cat disappears. Damn it, how did my Doki get their asses whipped that easily? Naruto heard the sound of Hyuga's flute, and noticed how her chakra was woven into the sound. It latched to him, affecting his senses. And the world around him changed. Immobilized, the world was filled with morbid hallucinations of pain. Of unspeakable suffering. For a moment, it felt like his skin was melting. With wide eyes, Hyuga saw how the blonde started to smirk. Impressive. Even Kurenai-sensei is barely able to capture me in her genjutsu. For someone like you to be near her level of skill, it is such a waste. How did you break free? Hyuga gasped. That's impossible. I caught you. You seriously want to start a pissing contest on who has the most chakra, with the Jinchuriki of the most powerful Biju of them all. Naruto laughed. But there was no actual mirth in his laugh. In fact, it terrified Hyuga that her strongest illusion was nothing but a joke to him. However, he didn't break it because of the Kyuubi. No, ever since he received the Gekihoko he had been nearly immune to illusions, but that wasn't something he was about to tell her. Every time the Kyuubi tried to break free, I felt my skin boil. Do you really think a little pain would hamper me? Idiot. You are just as stupid as that fat moron whom I torched a little while ago. Jirobo, you killed them all. There are two Jonin back there, cleaning up those black painted demon spawn. Amor. Hyuga took a step back. Amor, that painted asshole, is there. Who cares? Those mongrels are probably dead by now. Amor isn't killed that easily, he can't feel any. Do you actually worry about that filthy piece of crap? Naruto scowled. I guess words are truly wasted on you. And I just continued to ramble even after I said I had enough. I have wasted enough time now. In a blur of movement, Naruto grabbed Hyuga's flute. When she saw how her best weapon, one which could even be used to block kunai and swords, was snapped in two like twig, Hyuga knew she was beaten. She knew she would die. She had lost. That realization made her mad. She hated losing more than anything else. But the fist she tried to plant in the blonde's stomach never hit. With a crude chopping movement, Naruto's first landed on her right clavicle. The bone snapped, and the sheer force behind the punch numbed her entire body. Hyuga fell over, and the power of her cursed seal receded. However, before she could hit the ground, Naruto grabbed her by her hair. Lifting her up with his right, the index and middle fingers of his left hand touched her forehead. Hyuga could feel the chakra gather in his fingers. This is it. I'm dead. And the most fucked up thing is that I don't even know whether it is bad, or if I should be happy I can finally leave this piece of shit earth. Fuck it all. Facing death, Hyuga decided to at least preserve her dignity. So she smirked at him, surprising Naruto when he couldn't even sense any fear or hatred from her. Do it. It confused her. Ever since she had entered the forest, she had constantly felt this weird tingling sensation. I should know it. It feels so familiar. But no, it is gone now. But every now and then, she felt it faintly, distantly. It was as if it was covered by something else, something dark, something vile. But where does it come from? I can't feel the source of that chakra signal. Latched on Naruto's shoulder, the black and white cat had witnessed the entire battlefield. It had not been the fat two-leg, whom ended up being burnt to ashes by Naruto's fuinjutsu. She could feel the disappearing chakra signals of the two dead opponents, but those were not the source either. It had not been the painted two legs either, even though she remembered those men very clearly. They were the ones who had killed. She wanted revenge, but her curiosity had led her away from the path before she fully realized who those painted creatures had been. Rather than returning to that battlefield, she wanted to know the origins of that signal. It was still somewhere else, but where? As strongly as she could feel it now, she couldn't locate it at all. Here, Naruto was facing some weird kind of demon. This horned dark-skinned two-leg is not the source either, is she? Get them back to Konoha. I'll kill this idiot and then track down Gaara on my own. Whisker Two-Leg still has that stupid habit of wanting to do everything by himself. I thought he would learn his lesson by now, she mentally sighed. Two-Leg, you shouldn't. Mateki. Mugen Onsa, demonic flute. Phantom sound chains, the pink-haired girl interrupted her before she could warn Naruto. Not that the illusion did her any good, as Naruto easily snapped out of it. Though, the fact that he was even caught by it is impressive. That strange source of chakra in his right hand usually disrupts whatever genjutsu is cast on him, so for him to be caught. Ah well, not that it helps. He took her down with one hit. Stupid horned two-leg, didn't she realize sooner that it was futile to fight Whisker Two-Leg? After seeing how Tubby Two-Leg was killed, Whisker is really mad. She was mildly curious when the horned girl suddenly changed. Being beaten, her chakra levels dropped drastically. But that wasn't all. Her light pink hair darkened. Though it did not become as red as Karen's hair, the horned two-leg came close. I suppose I shouldn't call her horned two-leg now. Her horns disappeared as well. Weird. Not that it really matters. Whisker Two-Leg seems to be preparing his futon, Rinkuden. But when Naruto lifted the girl up, and placed two fingers to her forehead, she noticed something. Something that made her feel like the world collapsed on top of her. Do it, the defeated two-leg muttered. No, it can't be, this girl. But, the color of her fur is right. Her voice. Did she really change into that hideous form? But the mark is there. It is her. It must be. It has to be. The paw mark cannot be transferred, so there is no other way. She realized who the girl was. And Naruto was about to kill her. Suzume. Bonus. Cheating. Whistling a happy tune, Kurenai went into Asuma's home. No, their home, it was now theirs together. Asuma had been scared ever since they started their relationship, scared that someone would try to hurt her because of him. He couldn't help but be scared by what happened to his brother, assassinated because of their father's fame. So, Kurenai had proposed a bet. If her student would outperform Asuma's, she would prove to him that she was the better sensei, and thus the better shinobi. She proposed this oblique contest because the two of them were completely different types of shinobi. She was a genjutsu mistress, attacking from the shadows and defeating an opponent before he or she ever realized Kurenai was there. Sure, She had her skill in ninjutsu and taijutsu too. She would not have made it to her position as Jonin if she hadn't been an all-rounder. Asuma, in contrast, preferred fighting at close range. So, he too had agreed with the bet. He knew better than anyone how fearsome her skill with weaving illusions was. Well, not that they were only horrible. Kurenai blushed slightly when she recalled some of the illusions she had created for him. Still, Asuma had assumed that at least Shikamaru would be capable of figuring out a way to trap Naruto in the second part of the exam. It had even been his reason for agreeing with that little sparring match, even though that one had another bet attached. No, Asuma knew that if Shikamaru was properly warned about Naruto's prowess, he would think of some way on how to beat the Jinchuriki. Moreover, while Naruto considered Team 10 as friendly, he would also hold back on the usage of that accursed chakra. Sadly, things had gone rather differently. Choji losing the preliminaries had not particularly surprised Asuma. But Ino and Shikamaru had done as expected. Ino had been unfortunate to face Temari, but she had come further than Hinata and Kiba. But then Naruto had crushed Neji and Gaara, while Shikamaru had not even gotten his chance to show his abilities, not in the arena, at least. Asuma had no choice but to accept defeat, something which he had done happily, despite the concerns he had about her safety. So he had to make the first move. Looking down at her ring, Kurenai smiled at the memory of him asking to marry her. Blunt as he always was, if only to hide his embarrassment. She knew better than anyone how caring he actually was. Even though he tried to hide it behind his laid-back attitude, she had always had a knack for seeing through his facade. Still whistling her song, Kurenai entered their bedroom. The room which she had cleared of Asuma's collection of marked man sake bottles, although Asuma had saved them all, and were now stored in a secret compartment underneath the dining table. As much as Kurenai loved her genin team, she was glad to be home. As for not having seen Asuma in 3 days, she berated herself for acting like a silly, lovesick little girl. But she couldn't help it. She was so preoccupied that she did not even notice the fluffy long tail that vanished around the corner, the moment Kurenai stepped in. She had been so caught up in her mischief that she nearly made a fatal mistake. The unsuspecting Kurenai walked in, and froze. Sarutobi Asuma frowned as he heard his wife sob. Kurenai, what's going on? He called out, hurrying to where she was. Still in the bedroom, surrounded by some pretty neat pieces of lingerie. Of the luxurious and seductive kind. Had he not seen his sobbing wife, the good man would have had another nosebleed. He had way too many nosebleeds anyway, a thing that Kakashi found rather amusing. Since the silver-haired Jonin heard of their marriage, he kept pestering Asuma with his collection of perverted books. I bet that is why he always wears those masks, so that no one sees his perpetual nosebleed. Asuma pondered. What got you like this, darling? Darling. Kurenai suddenly snapped. What were you thinking? And with Anko of all people. With my best friend. How dare you? Anko. Wait, what? He suddenly paled when he realized what she was saying. Her pointing at the lingerie and talking about Anko, he was not completely dense. I thought you bought those. They're Anko's. She bought them together with me, when we went shopping a few weeks ago. Why you think I had an affair? With Anko. Asuma was completely flabbergasted. If you weren't crying like that, I would say you were joking. Then, you didn't. Even when I served the daimyo, I had plenty of opportunities, but ever since the academy, I only had one girl I loved and I married her. He grabbed her by her shoulders. I would never ever do something like that. I'm sorry, Kurenai sniffed. I was tired. Your father. The whole mess with Naruto. Our marriage. I was just stressed out. Asuma pulled her in a hug. I know. I guess it is my duty as a husband to make sure you relax, isn't it? Half crying, half laughing, Kurenai leaned in for a kiss. Wow, that plan backfired spectacularly, she frowned. She was watching for the mayhem would unfold. Her little band of merry cats had run off when she told them about her plan, not wanting to see a repeat of the Anko disaster they had witnessed last time. But never did she expect this prank to result in such an enthusiastic version of that odd mating ritual the two legs followed. So two legs get rutted after resolving a quarrel like that. Two legs are weird. Ah well, I guess I have to move on to my next target now. That's it for this part. If you enjoyed it, then like, share and subscribe for the next video, as it's going to be more interesting, and also check out my other playlists. Hope you would like them too.